that pesky ad block. Turn off 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 that pesky ad block.
Alrighty, folks, and we are live. Alright, so I don't have Luke with me tonight. He might hop on in a bit later, but anyways, I will have Pastor Tom on here in a second. I'll go ahead and call him on the Skype there. I also I have a good Captain Morgan with me. A little bit of Pepsi because we're going to need that. Because I'm talking about some infuriating shit tonight. And I'm not even going to get into what Medicare covered today. Holy crap. If you didn't catch Medicare's video, he talked about furries literally raping puppies to death. I'm not even prepared to get into that. I suggest watching that video, but you should probably have a strong stomach if you do so. All right, let's go ahead and call. Yeah, we're on the Skypes. Oh, Luke is ready. Okay, good. Luke is ready. All right, we're gonna go ahead and call Luke on the Skypes there, and we're also gonna add Tom into the call. All right, good. Skype noise all over the place. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and add Tom to the call. And Luke, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. How you doing today?
Not bad. Not bad.
Yeah, the whole world is crashing down. Humanity is determined to crash the world around us, but I'm doing fine.
Pretty much where I'm at. Pastor Tom, how you doing tonight?
Yeah, good. How's it going?
Good. And I definitely wanted to get Pastor Tom on here because we have to discuss something. And I definitely want to get Pastor Tom's opinion on it. Why is evangelical culture run by faggots? Is going to be a big topic tonight. Now, unlike the Catholics, we're not talking literal faggots. But we'll get into this here in a minute. I got a lot of shit here on the pad that I wanted to cover. I guess we'll start with the Stone Street shit. Holy crap. So, real quick, earlier last week, I guess a couple weeks ago, a bunch of the tech companies just showed Alex Jones. They threw him off everything. They threw him off the Apple App Store or whatever. I think they got rid of his YouTube channel. They threw him off Twitter. Everything. And just yesterday, he was thrown off PayPal. InfoWars was thrown off PayPal. I don't know this for sure, but I believe, according to other people who have been thrown off PayPal, whatever's in your PayPal account, they just confiscate. Which, as far as I'm concerned, that's illegal, but they do it. But really, there's a lot of things going on here that's, I don't think, quite so legal. But yeah, imagine that. Imagine tomorrow, you uttered some wrong things, so your bank account's gone. This is the world we're getting into here. All right, we're rapidly approaching a future where your Amazon smart car won't start and take you to work in the morning because Alexa heard you utter some wrong thing last night, and your subscription to your Amazon smart car has been revoked for 3 months, maybe permanently. We are the name of tonight's show is Cyberpunk minus the cool parts, because that's where we are headed. And it's definitely something that somebody has to stop. Trump has said something. So I read on Vox Day's blog there was something about a executive order possibly getting done to maybe do antitrust laws to go after Alphabet, the company that owns Google. And antitrust laws went after Microsoft for way less than what Google did back in the 90s. Let's not forget. I think there needs to be some sort of common carrier clause put on these companies. As Forney likes to point out, there's Marsh v. Alabama, a court case in which A woman was in a company town where the company owned the sidewalk. She was handing out Jehovah's Witnesses tracts on the sidewalk. The company said she couldn't do it. They took it to the court. The court said if you own a monopoly on the means in which speech takes place, you cannot restrict free speech. And further, the Supreme Court ruled in that case that the more a company opens itself up to the public, the more it must operate like public space. Social media, by its very nature, seeks to be a digital town square, particularly companies like Twitter, or especially Twitter and Facebook. So I would say Marsh v. Alabama completely applies to these companies, and something's got to be done. Just yesterday, James Woods, the actor, who's somewhat conservative, he published some of the leaks about the Democrats, or what was it? Something about the Trump declassified all the bullshit about the Russia investigation, I think, or something. And Twitter locked out his account until he deleted it, saying this is misleading and can influence the election. This is creepy bugman shit that's going on here. And look, I'm a hardcore libertarian at heart. I always have been. My primary political instinct is get off my lawn. But this cucky shit about, well, it's not censorship if the government's not doing it. You know what? If I have a boot on my neck, I don't care if that boot belongs to the federal government, the local government, the state government, Google, Twitter, Apple, whatever. I just want the boot off my fucking neck. All right. Are we all gonna be lined up against the wall in the Google gulag and saying, well, at least it's not the government? Is that the future? We're gonna. Well, that's the future some conservatives are bringing us towards. So we're gonna discuss an article that lit me the fuck off this week, pissed me off to no end, and I would say rightfully so. So let's bring this up. This is off of Breakpoint, so you know it's good. This is what was this? Wednesday? It was I'm not even seeing the date on there. It was earlier this week. The article is entitled Breakpoint, Alex Jones and Free Speech. You can't have your InfoWars and eat your cake too. Let's go ahead and hop into the screen share for this. Windows capture, boom. Good about the slideshow. There we go. All right. So, freedom of speech is a badly misunderstood concept. Here's why Christians must get this right. Silicon Valley has never had the friendliest relationship with conservatives. Last year, Google fired James Damore for circulating a memo about the differences between men and women. Before that, Brandon Elk was forced out of Mozilla for donating to California's traditional marriage campaign. Now tech giants are flexing their muscles by going after conspiracy theorists and libertarian shock jock Alex Jones. By the way, how much of a pussy do you have to be to think Alex Jones is a shock jock? I get that he's over the top a lot, but shock jock I generally describe as somebody who swears a lot, uses a lot of adult humor. I guess I qualify in that. But Alex Jones is a shock jock? Change your fucking tampon, John. Anyways, Alex Jones, just days ago, Apple permanently removed Jones from its mobile app store, citing violations of policy against objectionable content. He was kicked off Twitter after the company says he repeatedly broke its rules against abuse and harassment. Facebook and Google recently removed Jones' content from their platforms as well. Now, the immediate reaction of many conservatives and even some Christians to this news has been to defend Jones. Republican Senator and former presidential candidate Ted Cruz said, "Who made Facebook the arbiter of free speech or political speech?" Jonah Goldberg at the National Review called the move a glimpse of the future in which big internet silences dissonant voices on the right. Jones himself has accused Silicon Valley of censoring him, and many of his fans have called this a violation of free speech. Now, no one should listen to Alex Jones on social media or anywhere else. Let me just say that. His is a brand of conspiracy theories and outright lies. Oh, Stone Street, you unbelievable faggot. He goes on in this article to basically make the basic bitch argument that it's a private company, they can do what they want. Now, there's several things wrong with this. As I pointed out, Marsh v. Alabama, I think pretty clearly applies to this. Also, there's the element of whatever you think the Constitution says in this regard. Is this a hill you want to die on? Because you're going to die on it. Okay? You could sit here and be like, well, I don't think Marsh v. Alabama applies. I want a free market solution to this. I want a free market solution to this. You know what? To me, you sound like a 6-year-old girl saying, I want a pony. When you said it. I want a free market solution. Who fucking cares what you want? You want a free market solution? Do you have one? No? Then I guess we got to go with something else. Okay? Yeah, I guess I'd prefer a free market solution to that, too. I'd prefer if I win the fucking Powerball tonight, too. I'd much prefer if I was the subject of Taylor Swift's next album. But I don't see any one of those as being very likely, so I got to deal with reality. I want a free market solution. How about we need a solution, all right? We need a solution. Now, I had a comment on here. I was actually surprised got approved. I have responded to several comments, and we'll probably go through some of those. But I had this comment right here where I said, you're wrong, John. There is precedent here in Jones's favor. The court case, Marsh v. Alabama. In that case, I typed a typo there. In that case, a woman was handing out religious pamphlets to people on the sidewalk of a company town. They stopped her and she took it to the Supreme Court and won because the court ruled that when a company has a monopoly on the means in which free speech takes place, they cannot restrict free speech. And just pragmatically, do you not see what is happening? They'll come for this site eventually for being homophobic or whatever. Maybe they'll throw you off social media. Or maybe you'll have an incredibly hard time finding a domain register. That's already happened to some sites deemed hate speech. Is it really free speech when a handful of billionaires in Silicon Valley decide what we can say or think? But maybe Breakpoint won't actually have anything to fear from our new tech giant overlords. After all, you seem to be of that old school William F. Buckley conservatism, the kind that does nothing but lose and never conserved a thing. You might be allowed to stick around as a punching bag, like the bow tie wearing token Republicans they have on MSNBC. There was another response that I want to highlight on here because it was just I had a back and forth with the editor Timothy here. I mentioned to responding to somebody else, even domain registers are cracking down on what people can say. The white nationalist site, the Daily Stormer, as well as website delete it, have had their domains taken down before. I typed out altright.com. The reason I typed it out as a website is .com is considered part of that site's name, as far as I know. Well, the editor didn't allow me to link that. He didn't allow me to type out altright.com, right? Keep that in mind. He also allowed me to mention the Daily Stormer, which is kind of fucked up. He didn't censor the far more extreme of the two. But whatever. I guess because the one was the link. Well, I talk about the Marsh v. Alabama thing, right? And he responds, I'm not a lawyer myself, but I ran your suggestion about Marsh by one. This is his reply. Marsh isn't applicable here. He goes on for some bullshit reasons why. But then he says, here's a link to an article that sums up the situation nicely. And this motherfucker links to the Huffington Post. This conservative Christian, who by the way, we dare not link to altright.com, but he'll link to the Huffington Post. He'll link to the Huffington Post. I don't know about you, Timothy D. Pageant, but I generally don't take advice from a bunch of communists who would happily see me lined up against the wall. Oh, gee, your political enemies said you can't do this? I guess you better take it seriously there, Timothy. What's the matter, Timothy? What, you couldn't find a 300-pound black woman on BuzzFeed to quote? Like, what? The Huffington Post? Are you fucking kidding me here? Like, and I say this into a comment to him. I said, here's the thing I legitimately don't get with you guys. Even if it is, let's say, a gray area, isn't it worth trying? This is why conservatives have spent 60 years losing. You won't even show up to the fight. Because, forgive me, it seems like John, and to extension you, is saying nothing we can do. We should just accept a bunch of godless Silicon Valley dweebs deciding what we can all say and think. This article was nothing more than telling Christians to fucking stand down. It makes me wonder whether Stone Street is in that wonderful fucking middle ground where I can't tell if is he evil and controlled opposition like Glenn Beck, and he's hoping he gets to be one of the token punching bags. He hopes he gets to forever be the Washington Generals to the left's Harlem Globetrotters, or is he this much of a fucking pussy? I really can't fucking tell with these guys half the time. You know, this misguided sense of fairness. Well, let's lay down and die because of this misguided sense of fairness. You know, what is wrong with you? We're not playing a game here, all right? This is for the future of this civilization, all right? Fuck fairness. I don't owe fairness to people that want me dead. All right, if somebody breaks into my house, I'm gonna shoot him. I'm not gonna go hand him a pistol too and say we're gonna duel at dawn because I want to be fair. I can't shoot an unarmed man. Fuck that shit. This isn't a game. This isn't. Who cares about a fair fight? This isn't a boxing ring. These people want to destroy everything. All right. Do these idiots not get this about the left? Okay. John Stonestreet, on the off chance you want to hear this. Timothy, those people you cite at the Huffington Post. Guess what? They want to burn this country down. Okay. They want to open our border. They want to flood this country with third worlders who will turn it into a shithole. All right. They want to line you up against the wall. They want to banish Christianity from this nation. They want to seize your assets. They want to ruin you. They want to turn your daughter into a whore and your son into a bug chaser. And they think it's funny. They think it's fucking hilarious. And from their standpoint, I guess it must be. Because you're letting them do it.
Somebody also considered it is the same John Stonestreet who has articles that say China shuts the door, talking about the persecution of Christians in the China.
And you know what else? He's like getting up on this high horse about like freedom of association, basically here. You know, because we can't tell Twitter they have to host Jones because otherwise, how do we have a leg to stand on to tell the baker that he doesn't have to bake the dildo cake for the faggots? Well, first of all, he does, okay? We keep losing that battle because we lost the freedom of association battle in 1965, all right? But you know what? If it means I get to fucking actually express my ideas without, you know, some Silicon Valley bugmen up my ass, I'll bake a million dildo cakes, okay? Let's either have freedom of association or just don't, all right? But I'm tired of being the only one. Our side can't be the only one that applies it, that actually respects it, all right? And what's more, Stonestreet is a hypocrite because I brought up in the past talking about these, you know, bake the cake bigot things. I'm like, well, you realize you lost this battle in 1965. That's where businesses lost the right of freedom of association. And I get replies from all of these people like, nah, that was different. Because reasons. Because I'm not a racist. And just dumb shit like that where they can't put two and two together. What is wrong with these people? Why? And you know what really strikes me, and I've known this I've seen this for years. Evangelicals as a whole, and I'm using this as sort of a catch-all for conservative Protestants in America because it's almost entirely evangelicals, but just conservative Christians in America, evangelicals in America. In my time in the church, I see at the grassroots, I don't see this kind of faggotry. I see real men who, you know, actually have T levels, you know, higher than a 6-year-old girl. I see a perfect example, and this is just an example of the disconnect between evangelicals at the grassroots levels and kind of the leadership on the world stage. Back in the 2012 election cycle, there was the Values Voters Summit in which they had a straw poll on which Republican candidate they wanted, right? And you would think maybe a guy like Rick Santorum would be the winner. No, it was Ron Paul. And number 2 was Herman Cain, who, if you remember, ran as kind of Ron Paul light, or Ron Paul dark, if you want to make the joke. And then a few months later, all these sort of evangelical leaders, guys like James Dobson, guys like Eric Metaxas, guys like John Stonestreet here, I think Chuck Colson was still alive at the time, they all got together and had their own straw poll, and they wanted Rick Santorum. Now, I bring that up not to even celebrate Ron Paul over Rick Santorum. That's not the point. The point is, right there you see a disconnect between the leadership and the rank and file. And I see that a great deal in evangelical circles. And not, I shouldn't even say leadership, because, like, most of the pastors I've seen at, like, churches aren't cucked. But, like, what represents conservative Protestants on the national stage is always a bunch of effeminate weasels and fat sacks of soy like John Stonestreet. I don't even understand why this is. I wonder if maybe part of it is the nature of evangelical kind of parachurch ministries and their media is that they're primarily appealing to housewives, and you end up with this sort of conservative version of Oprah or whatever. I don't know why this is. I don't know why we're represented by cucks like fucking Russell Moore, who wants to see this country flooded with third worlders because he's got some white guilt. I don't understand why, because this is not how evangelicals voted for Trump overwhelmingly. Evangelical leaders on the national stage, you know, everyone who represents us denounced Trump overwhelmingly. Just today, I was listening to Breakpoint's fucking weekend thing, and they're talking about what the hell's the guy's name? Kavanaugh or whatever, the Supreme Court justice, that, you know, apparently we have to wait and hear from some whore because supposedly he grabbed her ponytail in the monkey bars in 3rd grade or some dumb shit like that.
Kavanaugh,
thank you. Like, and John Stonestreet is, the actual allegations, no exaggeration, I believe, are he, like, grabbed her pussy through her pants at a party when they were 15 as teenagers. Now, he denies that. There's absolutely zero evidence that it happened. And frankly, I wouldn't care if it did. Okay, so he was kind of a douche when he was a teenager. Oh, man, whoopee jack shit. Meanwhile, a guy like John Stonestreet is sort of tentatively on his show this weekend saying, like, well, I don't think these allegations are true, but you never know. And if they are true, then obviously I couldn't support him because he pulled a girl's ponytail in the monkey bars in 3rd grade. And what is this faggot shit? Like, are you serious with this? You actually care if this? I don't care if he did it. Now, if it turned out he did it, I'm kind of annoyed that he lied about it. That's some, like, you didn't even have to lie. You could have just said, look, I was a dumb teenager. Who cares? But he didn't do it, first of all. Let's be clear. He didn't fucking do it. There's zero evidence that he fucking did this, okay? Like, none. All right, there's more evidence that Mundane Matt was actually collecting boulders that night than that this actually happened. All right? There's nothing to point to this. This is nothing. It's nothing if it were true, and it's not true. Oh, he groped some girl at a drunken party in high school. Oh, no. Oh, no. He grabbed some
which he never bothered to report.
He grabbed some girl's ass and she slapped him in high school. Oh, no. You mean he might have been a bit of a douche at the age of 15? I'm shocked. Because I'm sure we were all completely respectful, supreme gentlemen when we were 15, right? And by the way, it didn't happen. There's no evidence that it happened. None. So why doesn't a guy like Stonestreet have the balls to go out there and say, this didn't happen. Stop entertaining these stupid charges, and let's get this man on the Supreme Court so we can turn back the clock on all the stuff that John Stonestreet cares about, which is basically just abortion and gay shit. But why not? Why not actually, I don't know, fucking try fighting for once?
I'm pretty sure this is what's called, commonly referred to as being blue-pilled. He's still thinking in the dimensions of the church is still this great centralized power of America is still a strong central power of Christian national or Christian influence, and he's just saying, oh, well, we should just do this and this and this, and everything will be better again.
You know what he said on that show, Breakpoint, this weekend, talking about the Kavanaugh hearing? He said, and I quote, false rape or sexual assault or whatever accusation. False accusations like this are actually very rare. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you kidding me with that?
Yeah, rare as in some places are 44% rare.
Like, how are men like this what represents conservative Protestantism on the world? Like, just biblical Christianity. Let's just call it what it is. Biblical Christianity. Minus all the nonsense. All right. How is this what represents us? All right. Because, Breakpoint the site wasn't never even like... That was founded by Chuck Colson. And while I didn't always agree with Chuck Colson, he was at least a man. He was an ex-Marine. He served prison time. How did two effeminate weasels end up running his site when he died? I don't know, Pastor Tom. What do you think?
Oh, wow. Well, where to begin? I guess one of the things that drives some of this, I think, is theology. At least trying to look at it from the most optimistic standpoint, what could be driving some of this? It's kind of like, okay, well, we know God's going to win in the end. So even if we lose political power, even if we lose, the government, even if everything collapses, well, we still know that God's going to win. We're still trusting in that. So we're going to stick to our principles. We're going to, keep ourselves pure and, not compromise anywhere because, we're trusting that God's going to take care of it all in the end. And so, even if that means that we lose a lot of lives and anything like that. And that's me trying to approach it optimistically. That's me trying to give like an optimistic reason here. But even that would be a real misunderstanding, obviously, because
I think God's in control too, but I still put my seatbelt on.
Well, yeah, I think people like Bonhoeffer and a lot of the men who fought in World War II, would have believed that, God is going to win, and yet they still felt it necessary to go and to fight and die and kill people during World War II. They thought that was necessary to stop the Japanese, coming in and, and again, for them when they attacked us.
If
and various
anything,
other
the God's
wars,
going
the
to win
colonists had that same
mentality,
thing.
the God's going to win mentality should encourage you to be even bolder, to fight even harder, to know that you never have to give up against your enemies. You can die on your feet, and it doesn't matter. It should embolden you to say, as I like to say, I've made my peace with God. Let's dance.
Well, it's this thing to where again, it's like, well, we have to play by the rules. We have to keep our moral principles high. Because and we can do that because God wins. The other thing is kind of looking at it less optimistically, and I think probably a little bit more realistically for some of these people, is they have very much we talked about this before, but they very much romanticized the idea of losing with dignity, right? Well, I might have lost, but I stuck to my principles, and it's better to lose but stick to your principles than to win if you had to compromise. And so it's very much an over romanticization of that whole concept, which I think is something that we've seen in a lot of movies. I think it's something that we see even in a lot of like Christian media. This idea of, again, just losing with dignity in a sense, where you have the person who ends up dying, but they still have their principles, and so they died because of their principles. But some of this is, of course, part of our origins as well, right? Protestants are coming from the Reformation, and the Reformers, many times they would either have to give up their faith or be executed, and so that's part of our origin is in Reformers, obviously, and of course even going back to the earliest Christians with the martyrs there, right? We could have lived if we had just simply made a small concession. If we would say, well, we'll just say Caesar is Lord, and we'll it's not that he's actually Lord. We know that Jesus is really Lord, but we'll make this tiny concession. But there were Christians who said, no, we're not going to do that. Only Christ is Lord, and yet, so they ended up losing their life for that. And so I think people kind of have this idea, and I think there's a real romanticization about martyrs amongst evangelical culture in general. And so people have this idea of, I'm standing on my principle, even if that means, and especially that means that I'm going to go down in flames, I'm going to die, and I'm going to sacrifice all these things because it's going to show just how important my principles are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree with you. I just, it's so misguided because they're not they're not dying for real principles. They're not. The hill they're choosing to die on isn't objective morality. It isn't truth. It's basically being polite is the hill they've decided to die on. You know, as Undertow famously said, they don't understand the difference between manners and morality. And that was perhaps the most brilliant thing he said on this channel, because that was so dead on. Manners, being polite and respectable and civil, and I have a big boy suit, is basically the hill they want to die on.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, of course, and for some of these people, they've got to these. You're wondering, like, how did these people get to these positions of power? For some, it's quite obvious. I mean, in some cases, and I don't necessarily name names, although you've already mentioned him tonight, though, he's received money from other people whose name rhymes with Boros. And that's partly how he's gotten to the position that he's in today. So there have been other people with political motivations who have been seeking to influence these things that have paved and paid the way for some of these people to get influence. I don't know if that's the case necessarily for the people in charge of Breakpoint and all. I just know that has been seen.
I remember the story where George Soros foundations were pumping a lot of money into Christian organizations, and I believe it was right around that time I saw a few pro-refugee BS articles off of their site. So I don't know. They might have some interesting donors over at Breakpoint.
Well, and see, the refugee thing is kind of, I think it can go along those same lines, right? Well, yes, okay, they can't, even if they come in and, it ends up being horrible for the country and a lot of people end up suffering, it was the right thing to do and we did the right thing, and so even though all of these bad things happened because of it, we can stand firm because we know that we were doing the right, we were being compassionate, just like Jesus wants us to be. And, it's sort of like, that's the thing where I know in Scripture it says we're to be gentle as lambs or gentle as doves, but wise as serpents, right? So it's one thing to want to stop and help somebody on the side of the road. It's another thing to want to stop and help somebody on the side of the road in the middle of the night when you've got no way of protecting yourself, right? I mean that's
well, something
putting yourself at unnecessary risk.
Something I don't think a lot of, at least in evangelical circles, I don't think they understand that your responsibility to your fellow man goes out in concentric circles. I don't think a lot of them really grasp this concept. I remember, one time at one of the churches I was involved in saying point blankly, like, why are we, what is this mission trip to Africa we're using all this money for? I mean, if we want to feed a bunch of poor black people, Philadelphia is an hour and a half away. And do we not have more of a moral responsibility to those poor black people since they are our fellow countrymen and indeed our fellow Pennsylvanians? And they just looked at me like I said the most ridiculous thing in the world. And you see a lot of this. Like, yes, there is some sort of refugees. Yes, I suppose we have something of a responsibility to them. But we have more of a responsibility to our fellow countrymen. And if letting those refugees in puts our fellow countrymen at risk, as it very obviously does, then the answer has to be no. Is there not, what is the passage where it says that the man who doesn't take care of his own is worse than an unbeliever?
Yeah, and I mean, again, it's a thing of both. I mean, because obviously, you could spend the rest of your life taking care of the poor around you, and the poor you'll have with you always. So I mean, there's obviously a sense of priority, and that's why a lot of churches. I think it should be a combination of both
I'm not
there.
Saying
However,
there
I will say
be
that it looks a lot cooler, on your website if you can say we went to Africa or we went to Honduras, like we went to this foreign country like that, and the pictures there, and that looks a lot cooler than we went there. Of course, even here, it looks. There's a lot of, one of the ways that churches could really help people is if they would send a bunch of people down to the nursing home and you just sat there and you just talked with some of the people in the nursing home. That would make their day. That would be the best thing that you could do for them. And yet, nobody does it. Why? Because it doesn't look as good. It doesn't look as cool, or, if you'll pardon the expression, it doesn't look as sexy to go down to the nursing home and sit with the old people down there who no one ever comes and visit, as opposed to going and feeding another person or collecting a bunch of things. And I'm not saying these things are bad. I'm just saying that there is a certain aspect within many churches that they want to do what looks cool, what people are going to respond to, rather than what's actually helping.
I mean, I'm not saying churches shouldn't support foreign missions and You know, there are Christians who are called by God to go halfway around the world to preach the gospel, but that is the exception. The vast majority of us, our mission field is what's in front of you. You know, as I like to say, there's a reason God said he told you to love your neighbor, not the world, because you can't love the world. You can love your neighbor. You know, your mission field is what's in front of you. So yeah, a lot of these churches, it just amounts to like a wanderlust. I mean, half the time they're sending a bunch of idiot teenage girls over there to accomplish nothing, except, you know, maybe something they shouldn't be accomplishing. You know, sending Tiffany and Mackenzie and the rest of the screw around gang to go over there and screw around in Haiti or Africa or whatever. That's not doing anything, you know. And
No,
just,
I mean, it's like, I mean, the mission trips where it's like you're going to accomplish something, like, they're building a church, like they're not like, I mean, they're like making a literal building that, is going to be where the church is going to meet, like that can serve a purpose, or going to dig wells for a particular place, or that kind of thing, that can serve a purpose. One of the things that I really like is when you've got preachers going to teach other people there who are called to be preachers, like people who are natives of that particular area. And so you've got people coming and teaching them and educating them. So that way, then the natives can go and preach and be established there. I think some of those are some of the best mission trips out there. I mean, that's kind of, I think, what we see in the New Testament a whole lot, with Paul and Barnabas and Timothy and whatnot. I mean, they're essentially, evangelists going around and then establishing the churches and then going back and checking up on them later. So I think, that's some of the best mission trips there, is where you're equipping the people who are native to that area to actually teach and lead and preach and all that kind of stuff. But going for, a week and handing out tracts and then doing sightseeing and then coming back and talking about, how awesome it was, that's not doing a whole lot.
Yeah, that's just spiritualizing your wanderlust. Like I know a doctor from a former church, and he kind of stopped doing it because he sort of retired from it. He's hardly a young man, but he used to go to Africa for close to a month, once a year, to train other doctors and to help get their hospital in whatever dump country in Africa he went to. I can't remember. But to help get their hospital in order, train doctors there and all. He provided actual useful, in the, immediate, pragmatic, horizontal sense, skills to them, and then used that as a avenue to preach the gospel to them. That's an incredibly useful service, but that's not sending a bunch of teenagers over there to screw around, on some sort of glorified field trip.
Okay. Now, I mean, on the other point about the whole thing with Alex Jones and whatnot, I my personal opinion, and again, I don't know Stone Street or anything like that, but my personal opinion is, I think he's got a little bit of a bias here, where I think he's afraid of how. I think what he's responding to is that if we give the government this power, it's going to be used against us, because that's what we've seen time and again, is that, any power that we give the government, it's ultimately turned against us. And maybe that's me reading a little bit of myself, because that's how I feel. I mean, I'm very hesitant to give the government anything, because I just know that, like I said, once I give the government that power to do something for me, I also know I'm giving them the power to do something against me. So, again, maybe I'm reading my personal filter onto him, but, I think that's kind of where he's coming from, especially with the sort of, where he made the comment about, what about the homosexual baker? I think there's a sense to where he's worried about, well, if we say that Twitter has to host this, well, then they're going to come back and say that, the baker has to make the cake. Now, for me, though, I think there's a big difference. I think that it's something akin to the fact that, if the homosexual goes to the baker and they just want to buy cupcakes, and the baker says, no, we're not going to give you cupcakes because you're homosexual. Well, then I think that, the homosexual could sue them and actually have an actual case.
You know what?
I don't think that's the same thing. What?
If the baker was the only place you could get a cake made in the tri-state area, and he told him no, maybe then the homosexual would have a case. But you can just go right down the street.
One of the things is that these companies, they may not be technically monopolies in this sense, but there's, because there are other places, but no place is as huge as these. I mean, and that's the thing. You're not nearly going to be as effective to where they are practically monopolies. It's one of those things where he's like, Stone Street is technically correct, but in practice, it falls apart very quickly.
And then because when you get to things like PayPal saying, no, you can't use PayPal anymore, now you're getting into the really dangerous territory where that's basically your bank saying, no, We've just, and again, from what I understand, at least I think it was Cantwell said this, the money that was in there went bye-bye. You know, they just kept it. So imagine tomorrow your bank says, oh, I don't like that thing you said the other day, so you can't bank here no more. Well, can I have my money? No, you can go fuck yourself.
Yeah, and see, I mean that to me, that's an example of discrimination based off of political bias. Like I think, and that's the other thing. That's what I was going to say about Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and all these companies is that, yes, they can have their policies. However, when they are not, when they're not exercising or enforcing their policies equally across the board, that's when we point to and we say, no, this is discrimination based off of, political bias or religious bias or whatever. And so there are clear examples of Twitter to where like James Wood, James Wood has his tweet deleted and has his account banned or suspended or whatever. And yet you've still got people who are of a more liberal set, saying things like kill all white people or shoot the president, anything like that. And yet they're still allowed, their tweets are not taken off. Their tweets are still allowed to stand up. Their accounts are not banned or anything like that. To me, that's an example of discrimination. That's a clear bias on Twitter's part. This isn't a matter of, well, here are our policies and you violated our policies. We have these policies, but we are selectively enforcing them based off of a political bias.
Yes. And the other thing is, I think this is obviously my opinion, but I think you're being too generous to John. I don't believe what he's worried about is, the government's going to do this. Because, look, he is happy to argue for an infringement of government power when it serves his direct interest. He very much is. He's not some consistent, hardcore libertarian when it comes to these issues. He's a typical conservative who argues small government when it's convenient for him. I think that he just doesn't like Jones. You heard it in there. You heard the contempt seeping in the article. I think he's just happy to have Jones get screwed over. And I think he doesn't want to be associated with Jones. I don't want to be I don't want him to, because we're both on the right, I don't want to be associated with him. The irony, of course, is Alex Jones would be standing up for Stone Street where the roles reversed. But yeah, I think it's more, I think it's more just virtue signaling. Like, I'm not like those. Because this crap started like a year or so ago with all the white nationalists, okay? Now it's moved on to the conspiracy guys. It's very obviously going to come for the conservative Christians. That's very obviously next. But for some reason, I don't know, maybe John Stone Street is harmless enough they'll let you be the token, the whatever. But this is very obviously not stopping with this. And okay, fine, you don't like Richard Spencer or fucking Weave or whatever, and you don't give a shit if they're deplatformed. That's fine. I understand that. I'm not fond of a lot of those guys myself. All right. But the point is, it's not stopping with them. And, you can sit here and you can have, private company and all. And I understand that. And I don't like the idea of having to turn to Big Brother for help. But something's got to be done. And I have yet to hear a better solution from anybody. And don't give me this crap about Gab and BitChute and all. That's a pipe dream.
No one's supporting that. I mean, that's when you were saying, I want the free market option. I thought about chiming in and saying, well, we've got the free market option. Nobody supported it. Gab would have been the way to do it, and nobody supports it. Nobody's
the thing
on
about
Gab.
it is part of it is this sort of, I like to call it the third party mentality. Nobody votes Green Party or Libertarian or whatever, any third party. Nobody votes third party because nobody votes third party, right? Nobody's on Gab because nobody's on Gab. Nobody's on BitChute because nobody's on BitChute. The reality is sometimes monopolies happen because there isn't need for two of something. There isn't really a need for two Twitters. There isn't really a need for two YouTubes. There's a need for a Twitter that isn't run by a bunch of creepy bugmen. Same with YouTube.
It's like trying to say that we need two town squares when really we just need one town square.
Yeah, Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and all, they seek to be the town square. Well, that's fine. It's about time we made them act like it. And no, I don't like the idea of turning to the government, but, I mean, again, this isn't going to stop, all right? This isn't going to stop. I mean, they're too harmless to be on the radar anytime soon. But very well, it could very easily be tomorrow morning John Stonestreet wakes up to find he's banned from Twitter, and Eric Metaxas is banned from Twitter, and Breakpoint is banned from Twitter, and then the dominoes are going to fall. Next thing it'll be Facebook, next it'll be YouTube, next it'll be PayPal, and next your domain register is going to throw you off, and you'll be banished from the web. You'll be breakpoint.ea, breakpoint.ai, breakpoint.co, trying desperately to stay afloat while you process only checks coming in the mail because PayPal's been taken away from you. I mean, I don't know what you call that, but it ain't nothing. It ain't freedom.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, that's something that, you know, and you're probably right. It's something that's hard for me because, yeah, I'm one of these people. Like I said, that's always my sort of go-to with this is, you know, anything I give the government. Okay, well, how's this going to be used against me? So I do see ways in which the government can abuse this, but at the moment, I don't really see a better option. That's the problem. You know, any of the, you know, the free market. It's one of those things where it's like, you know, like you said, if we don't really need 2 Twitters or we don't need 2 Facebooks or 2 YouTubes, so when we don't need those things, well, it can't really work that way. I mean, it's just sort of like, you know, we don't need, you know, variations on the screw all that much, you know? I mean, you know, it's one of those things that doesn't need to be designed in very particular different ways. It is what it is. And that's sort of the way that Twitter is and the way that Facebook is.
And what's more, I mean, the law already applies to these things. I'm not asking us to draft a new law here. Maybe that would be helpful, but I mean, you could take a lot of this to Supreme Court. We've already, well, we're going to have like a 5-2, you know, we're going to have a 5-2 majority on there. Take it to the Supreme Court, 7-2, whatever it is. Take it to Supreme Court and just apply Marsh v. Alabama. I don't think Marsh v. Alabama is a bad standard for companies to be under. I'm very much in favor generally of freedom of association, but I don't think Marsh v. Alabama is a bad standard. If you are a monopoly, you know, that's fine. I'm not for breaking up monopolies. I'm not a big fan of antitrust laws. That always seems like punishing the winner to me, and there's few things more un-American than that in my eyes. But if you are the monopoly, then you have to act a certain way. I mean, you can't be living in a world where you wake up tomorrow and the power company says we heard you said faggot one time, so, you know, we're going to shut your power off now. You know, sorry, you know, we heard you pulled a girl's ponytail in the 4th grade once, so, you know.
Well, or maybe a better example would be like Verizon, you know, like you're on Verizon and they say, well, we're not going to give you phone service anymore. And then Sprint also isn't going to give you phone service. And so then you can get, you know, some weird phone company that no one's ever heard of, but, you know, you have no signal anywhere. And so, yes, you technically have phone service, you know, you can go somewhere else and get it, but it's so bad you might as well not even have it.
Exactly.
You know, because these companies are saying, you know, well, no, we're not going to, you know, you can't be on our, you know, because we're not going to allow you to use our carrier system to carry your particular, you know, if you send a tweet to somebody or if you know, emailed somebody on their data or something like that, you know, we're not going to let, you know, it would be the same thing.
And you can't be having this. We cannot have this be how we operate. It just, you know, you're signing your own death warrant if you're going along with this. And you know, and I honestly think a guy like Stonestreet, he just, you know, he's not all that concerned that it's ever going to come for him. And he's like, haha, it's getting the white nationalists. It's getting the Alex Jones guys. I don't like those guys. But it's not going to stop, man. The only hope him in particular has is that he's too ineffectual for them to bother shutting down. Which, in all fairness, is a distinct possibility.
I mean, maybe, although, I don't know, some of this is, of course, also just, you know, they might just get shut down based off of the algorithms. I mean, my channel, you know, is nothing, and I still got a strike on it based off of just certain words that I put in the stream. And it wasn't even that bad. I think it was, I put Muslim in the title, and, like, I got a strike on it, you know? I mean, that was, you know, like, eventually it did get taken off, thankfully, but, I remember I was going to stream, and I think it was Islam or Muslims or something in there. So, but that had to have been an algorithm, because I mean, again, I hadn't even had the stream yet, and they had already just given the strike. So, I mean, they might get taken out just based off of the algorithms, because the algorithms are so messed up. And the problem is when they go to appeal it, well, they're going to be like, nope, we're not going to, we're not going to appeal it.
Well,
And I mean, as you know, all it takes is, a copyright strike to pretty much, kill the momentum that you had in terms of growth.
exactly. I pissed off some Mike Enoch fanboy one time, and I got my channel screwed into the dirt. I mean, a bunch of people pissed off Matt Mundane Matt, and they got screwed by it. It's just, I really, again, we're sitting here and we're having a conversation on how to address this. Whereas John Stonestreet basically yelled a stand down order to Christians with no alternative means. He offered no solution to this. He just said it's okay that that Alex Jones got banned. That's fine. Alex Jones was a dirty poo poo head anyways. Nothing to see here, folks. Move along. And I mean, when Jonah Goldberg at the National Cuck View is saying we need to do something about this, maybe you need to sprout a sack here. Maybe something needs to be done.
Well, I mean, the alternate solution is, if you don't want to get the government involved, what he can do is he can spur his fan base on to say, look, you don't have to like Alex Jones, but we don't, even if it's technically legally okay, it doesn't need to be okay for this company to do this. And the way that these companies respond, or can respond many times, is through consumers making complaints, making their voices known. And so if you complain to Twitter, if you complain to YouTube and, about that, this isn't fair about Alex Jones, that you're going to leave for this kind of stuff, he could encourage his fan base to do it. Now, nothing might come of that, but at least it shows that he's wanting to do something rather than just this, it's not technically a violation of free speech, so don't do anything, and again, it's that's kind of more of the method that he's taking here, rather than saying, this may not be free speech, but you can still make your opinion known, and that you don't think that this is okay, that you don't want to see this happen to other people, even if it's technically legal. That doesn't make it morally right. That would have been at least the least of what he could have done, and they'll still maybe have tried to stick to his principles some. But, he didn't. He chose not to do that. Maybe, as you say, because he just sort of wants to see Alex Jones go down, or I don't know. But that would have been an easy way, I think, to, he could have his principles and yet still voice his distaste with this. Even if nothing was going to do from it, that would at least been better than telling them to just, stop talking about it.
But again, I mean,
which, no, he didn't technically do, but that's sort of what's implied through the article.
Well, he tells them, everybody's saying maybe we should do something about this. He's telling them, don't do this thing that everyone's suggesting, and giving them no alternative. In my eyes, that's a stand down order. He is telling his followers, don't fight this. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to get, I'm not going to get put into Google gulag out of some misguided sense of fair play. Again, I'm not going to die on the hill of manners. I'm not going to die on the hill of quote-unquote fair play with people that want me dead. And, but again, all these signs point to these people being just pussies, or perhaps even, I don't know, malicious. I'm sorry, when you won't allow altright.com to be in a comment, but you'll link me to the Huffington Post as your source, that's a little interesting, isn't it? No. We can't do this. This 400-pound feminist on BuzzFeed said it's no good. Oh, well, I guess.
Well, I mean, one is socially acceptable, the other isn't. And so that's the thing, is that he doesn't want to allow something that is socially unacceptable on his website versus, Huffington Post. Well, that's socially acceptable. Even if people don't like it, Christians, they're not going to view it as socially unacceptable, unlike the Daily Stormer or white nationalists. Again, those are the pariahs of society.
What is socially acceptable? Not what is true, not what is right, not what is moral. It's about manners. It's about what can we say in polite society and all this other gay shit that I don't have time for.
Yeah, but I mean, the disconnect that you were pointing out is really true. You know, I mean, it's something that can be seen even statistically, you know, because like you said, so many people came out against Trump, and the fact that evangelicals still in large numbers voted for Trump, you know, shows the disconnect. Now, some of that is a little bit, you know, iffy because again, there are a lot of people who maybe don't like Trump, but they were more voting against Hillary Clinton. And I think there are a lot of people who are evangelical that really fall into that category. But then there are also a lot of people that I know who just really like Trump. And then, of course, you have some people who maybe don't like Trump in terms of his, you know, character flaws. They don't really like him as a person, but as a president, they agree with a lot of his policies. But, you know, like I said, I don't have a problem with the people who are like, well, I can't vote because I have these disagreements with Trump. It's like, okay, that's fine. But then don't sit here and feel like you're going to morally judge the people who do feel like that they need to vote, you know?
Well, I also, if somebody said that to me, I'd be like, did you vote for W? Oh, okay, so you're fine with a coke sniffer who spent his life pissing away his daddy's money? That's okay? Who did you vote for that was this morally upstanding man? Have you ever voted? Maybe Reagan? I mean, who else did you ever vote for? I find that when you scratch the surface on a lot of those types of people, not all of them obviously, but a lot of them, you find a pretty blatant hypocrisy. You find that the real reason they don't want to vote for Trump is the reason Ted Knight's character didn't like Rodney Dangerfield's character in Caddyshack. Nothing to do with morality. Everything to do with manners.
You know, the last thing I'll say is I think for some of these people, it's also the position of where they are. You know, they're in a position to where they're surrounded by a lot of other people. And so there is a degree to where they have to be careful with how they phrase things or how they say things just because, you know, they won't have the same opportunities otherwise. So they may not be able to speak out on things, so they have to speak differently. That's not everybody, but there are some people there, and you know it is how it is. I mean, some of these people, you know, they won't. If they were to truly give their real feelings, then you know they're not going to be going on TV. They're not going to be invited to this thing or you know that kind of stuff. So they can't really speak like that. And
well,
you know
isn't
some of that
sort
is
of the
fine.
opposite of standing on principles.
Yeah, exactly, and that's where it you know you can sort of see some of the hypocrisy, or I mean, as I said, this is some of them. This isn't everybody. It's you know, the reality is it becomes a whole lot more complex in that sense because I mean you're dealing with people at that point. So obviously you know there's not a one reason why that happens. I'm just talking in different reasons though why sometimes maybe evangelicals, at least in a lot of the leadership. You know, if you can even define what evangelical is at this point, you know, may not have as much of a fight in them. You know, and again, why it's easier to see that on the, you know, the lay level rather than in some of the leadership positions. And of course, then you just have some people that I think are snakes in the grass. They don't really have any interest in this. They really don't agree with a lot of conservative principles. It's just that they're acting conservative because they know that they won't have the position if they don't. And they're waiting for the moment to speak out. I think there was a lot of people like that. And I think a lot of that came out with the MLK conference and what was it, T4G and that kind of stuff, where that was, they sort of, you know, the curtain was lifted a little bit and we kind of got to see their true face some. And, you know,
Well, we got a few other topics we want to cover tonight, so we might come back to this a little bit, just talking about evangelical culture broadly, but I want to get to a few other things here. First of all, I just want to mention this because it's funny, but I don't have a ton to say about it. Yesterday, I believe it was, Mundane Matt switched. Now, as you all know, Mundane Matt's channel has been imploding. His scandal of, you know, being a hypocritical piece of shit who flags everybody because they made his pussy hurt. That's been destroying his channel, which was already kind of dying a heat death. His views have plummeted, his subscribers have plummeted, and his ratings have been about 90% negative on every video he puts out. The comments are nothing more than boulder jokes and calling him a fat sack of soy and all sorts of other fun stuff. Well, as of yesterday, he disabled ratings on his videos, his newer videos, and A lot of people are saying, I guess comments are probably coming next. Now, what's funny about that is disabling ratings and comments, from what I understand, hurts your algorithms, and it hurts the amount of ad money you get for those videos and stuff like that. So, I mean, you can tell that stuff's getting to him, because he's basically further hurting his already dwindling profit from his channel. Like I said, don't have a ton to say about that. I just thought it was a little something I'd bring up to everybody. Let everybody know the latest gay shit Monday Matt did, because it's just always fun. Moving on from that, we're going to talk about Comicsgate a little bit here tonight. So, I have not been really involved in Comicsgate. There's been two reasons. Number one, I don't have a Twitter. The show has a Twitter, but Luke runs it. I'm on Gab, but whatever. Nobody's on Gab. So I have not been following... I shouldn't say I have not been involved in Comicsgate a great deal. I'm in some Comicsgate groups in the on the Facebook. I've read... so I've gotten some of the alt hero comics. People have gotten them for me off my wish list. First one and the second one are really, really good. I haven't read Avalon #1 or issue 3 yet. But by and large, I haven't been involved in it. I've just sort of been lurking, just sort of been watching it. And what I've seen is an almost beat-for-beat remake of Gamergate, and I mean that in the worst way. You know how Home Alone 2 is like a beat-for-beat, rehashing of Home Alone 1? It's that same thing. Right up to including the throwing the right-wingers under the bus crap. There's been this massive feud between Ethan Van Sciver and Diversity in Comics, and on the other side, Vox Day. And they're saying Vox Day isn't really part of Comicsgate. He's just some hanger-on who's got this stupid cash-in comics. And Vox Day's actually produced comics. The other guys have not yet. They've produced a whole bunch of live streams and fucking t-shirts and selling shit like that. And they've managed to crowdfund a lot of money. And in all fairness, Vox Day crowdfunded his comics too. Why comic books need crowdfunded in the first fucking place is beyond me. Alright? Eastman and Lord made TMNT #1 for practically nothing in their basement in their spare time. It's a comic book. You write it, you draw it, you print it. And these people are getting, just tons of money thrown at them. And they threw Vox under the bus. Now, I understand Vox is an asshole. I freely admit that. Vox is an asshole. And he was probably being an asshole to them. But too bad. What do you got to counter signal against people for? You got that John Stone Street cuckiness there, isn't it? And then the other thing I'm seeing is that everybody just wants to fuck around on Twitter. The amount of times I see in these groups a post that amounts to, oh my God, look at Gail Simone being a bitch. Yes, Gail Simone is a cunt. All this plus sports and weather at 11. Stop fucking engaging with her. What are you doing talking to her? Leave these people alone. All right? They thrive on the attention. They thrive on... Gail Simone loves fucking fighting with the misogynists on Twitter. Just stop it. Just stop. How about you actually produce...
How many likes or retweets did their engagement get?
I don't know. But just stop... Stop wasting your time touching the poop, all right? Don't fucking interact with Gail Simone. It will bring you nothing but misery, all right? Every interaction with her is just going to depress you. It's just going to, make you think God has abandoned us, all right? That's all it's going to do. Gail Simone's a raging cunt.
If I can disagree, though, it might be bringing them more views, right? That's how they got some of their initial stuff is what? By engaging in this stuff, right? So like I said, I don't want to ascribe motivation to them, but I think, is it possible at least that the reason why they engage with these people on Twitter is to create the drama, to create
yeah,
this,
but that's all they have at this point is like.
Yeah, but if that's all they need?
They're not gonna actually be Again, Vox Day, for better or worse, has created an actual comic book company that has produced actual comics. one of which published by a veteran of the industry, Chuck Dixon. Yeah. You know, on an actual paper. The rest of these guys have done nothing but create hype and crowdfunding and T-shirts and fucked around on Twitter. It's the exact same thing. It's the throwing your further right-wing guys under the bus to try and cut to a narrative. It's trying to patiently explain to Gail Simone how you're not sexist. Like, if you don't like what the comic book industry is, then stop buying the soy-filled cuck comics and support ones that aren't full of soy and paz. You know? I don't even think you should... even having the title Comicsgate was dumb. It was better like when they had the Marvel milkshake hashtag. It was better when every shitlord on Twitter was just co-opting that. All right? Just co-opt the left's pussy-ass hashtags and laugh at them. I don't think Comicsgate is doing... Like, and I would love for it to do well. I would love for it. But I don't think it is. All right? And when I saw everyone wanting to counter-signal against Vox Day, that's when I knew it was dead. That's when I knew these guys aren't going to do shit. All right? And I would love to be proven wrong. I would love for Jawbreakers and Cyberfrog and the rest of these things to come out and do well and, you know, be well made and just, you know, put the fear of God into the big two, into all the rest of these companies. DC, Marvel, IDW, the whole lot of them. But it's not going to happen. You know, they've already wasted so much time and gotten so much crowdfunding that you get this much crowdfunding for a comic book, especially when you have, you know, amateurs creating it. You're not gonna live up to the hype. I don't see Comicsgate doing any good lately. Like, you know, what do you want to do here? Do you want to try and turn things around? Do you want to create an alternative to the soy-filled, cuck-filled comics, or do you want to fight with, you know, Gail Simone as she goes through the change? Like I said, I don't have a lot of faith in Comicsgate anymore. I mean, I can't say they ever really did. I approached it with cautious optimism at most, but I don't know. Go ahead, Tom. You had something.
I don't know. I don't know much about it, but I mean, if it's, you know, copying like Gamergate, I mean, there was a lot of people in Gamergate who didn't want anything to really change. They just wanted to make themselves famous. They just wanted to make their channels grow, get more money, that kind of stuff. So, I mean, if it's copying some of those same beats, then I think it's safe to say that for some of these people, that's just what it's about. I don't know. I mean, again, I don't want to like say that's why they're doing it. It's just, I know that that's why people were doing it during Gamersgate. So, you know, it seems like, well, yeah, that may be the reason why some of these people are doing it here is, you know, they don't want it to change because that would be the end of, you know, how they got recognition.
Yeah, that's the other thing. There's just a lot of e-celeb crap in there.
But, you know, it's also true is that it's amateurs, unfortunately. You know, that's the thing is that you do have people who are green. They've never done this before, you know, and so you got to learn. But when you do all this crowdfunding stuff and then you have this expectation, you know, you don't get to cut your teeth in a good way. You know, you build all the hype, and then when it's let down, that's sort of it. Rather than, you know, actually learning how to do it, starting out small, and then growing and getting better at it as you go along.
They're all guilty of it, but there was no reason comic books needed to be crowdfunded. That's ridiculous. All right. Maybe a little bit of seed money or something, but you should have set the bar really low, just a few grand to have the printing costs. And then when you made that crowdfunding thing, you shut it off and you didn't let anybody else contribute to it, just so that you're not, you know, look at the Mighty Number 9 disaster. One of the biggest problems with Mighty Number 9 is that they had like $4 million to make a 2D platformer in the 2010s. All right. There was no way they were going to live up to that, you know? Even if it had been good, people would be like, this wasn't $4 million worth. You know, you let these crowdfunding things get out of hand like this because it's just easy money rolling in, and you tend to look like an asshole at the end of it because you don't end up producing a product that was worth that. You know, a lot of people were disappointed in the ukulele thing, and part of that is because, you know, you built up this hype. Now, Mighty Number 9 was a disaster for a lot of reasons, and ukulele most people just said was mediocre. You know, but you build up all this hype, and a comic book doesn't need to be crowdfunded. This isn't some huge endeavor like a video game. You write it, you draw it, you print it. Hell, one person can do it. Tops, you need 2, maybe 3 if you got an inker and a penciler. You know, I mean, there was no reason that the crowdfunding crap, but at least Fox Day crowdfunded and then just, you know, put a product out there. A pretty good product, I might add. I really liked All Hero 1 and 2. I'm going to read 3 tonight. I thumbed through Avalon #1. I don't know. I can't speak to the story. I don't like the art in it at all. But I can't really speak to the story. Shifting gears a little bit. There's been a big push that now everyone is saying that Bert and Ernie should be gay. Bert and Ernie should be gay. This is a push. Now, one of the creators of Bert and Ernie, Frank Oz, said that Bert is not gay. I should know. I created him. And then John Scalzi on Twitter responded to that by saying, and I quote, "I mean, Frank, a lot of parents feel the same, but then their kids come out anyways." Leftists don't understand the distinction between fiction and reality, do they? Like, you see, children are autonomous human beings with minds and wills and souls and feelings. Bert and Ernie are puppets. They're puppets. They may have an illusion. You know, we often say, oh, they breathed life into this character. This actor or this writer or whatever breathed life into this character. But we're using that in a strictly metaphorical sense. They don't have any life. They're puppets. And I realize everyone already understands this, but I feel like I need to explain this to the John Scalzis of the world. You understand that Bert and Ernie can say nothing that the voice actors don't make come out of their mouths. They can make no movements that the puppeteers don't make them move. They're just sacks of fucking felt. They have not even the autonomy of a little speck of bacteria. They are not gay. They are not straight. They are not anything. And if anybody can say what they are, it's the one that created them. But hey, I guess creator intent doesn't mean anything. And that's why John Scalzi's books are all about white power. Now, they weren't intended to be that originally, but they are now, because I said so. What the hell is wrong with these people? I think there's no... Somebody else on Gab mentioned this, and I don't have it in front of me, so I can't say who it was. But there's no better example of how we are both sexualizing children and infantilizing adults, that people are having serious conversations. Not joking, not somebody made fan art in a porn site or a joke site or something, but serious conversations about the sexual orientation of puppets. And what's more, there's also the element where this is blatantly designed to destroy male friendship. There's been a blatant attempt to sexualize any strong male bonds. Somebody on another forum I saw said something. He goes, I always viewed Bert and Ernie's relationship as Ernie is a straight up omega. Okay, he is a borderline aspie loser, and Bert, being a loving friend, has decided to take care of this loser for the rest of his life. Which, given that Ernie, you know, sings to a rubber ducky and is obsessed with pigeons, that kind of makes sense. But the point is, the left wants to sexualize male friendships. You even see this like with biblical characters and characters.
Oh, David and Jonathan.
David and Jonathan. Thank you. I couldn't think of the other guy, and I didn't want to sound stupid, so I was glossing over it. But you see this with all these things because they want men isolated and atomized. They don't want strong male bonds. They got to sexualize everything. You know, be it historical figures, be it, you know, Bert and Ernie is gay, Batman and Robin is gay, and, you know, David and Jonathan are gay. Every literary figure,
Kirk and Spock.
Kirk and Spock, they were gay. They just it's all got to be that way, because you can't just have strong male bonds.
Well, I mean, even the stupid term bromance, you know,
even that's kind of trying to gay it up a little bit.
It is. I mean, it's joking. It's lighthearted, sure, but yeah, it's the same thing. Well, I mean, or like, you know, I don't know if you've gotten this far, but like, there's a character in the new Zelda game called Prince Sidon, and like everybody wants to see a relationship between Link and Prince Sidon.
Oh,
and, like,
the
you
fish
got people
guy?
who like straight up want to like have sex with this fictional fish character.
Yeah, I've seen disturbing fan art along those lines.
And it's like, what's wrong with you? I mean, he's a great character, but why do you have to go there?
And people think my term homomaniac is a fictional word.
Like Link can't just have a friend without, like, everybody assuming he wants a little slice of the caviar there. Like, come on. You know, and I know there are times when it is clearly implied, even if it's not outright said, that there's something going on there beyond a friendship. Like in the old Batman cartoon, it was clearly implied that Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn were a bit more than friends. That's involving two women, and men and women are different, okay? So, it's not the same thing. But B, it's not something where everyone just assumed it, you know, because there can't be female friends. You know, it's not like everybody ships every two female friends together in fiction. That was a specific case, okay? But everybody's got to make every strong male friendship in fiction be about butt sex.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing with all this stuff with like fiction too. And that was one of the things, like, I think I was commenting on Twitter where I was like, you know, I don't get what's this need to have all of this like representation in this sense. Like, I mean, I can understand, you know, okay, you want to see if you're gay, like maybe you want a gay superhero, but what's this need by people who aren't even gay? That's the other thing, is these people aren't even gay, they're not bi or anything, and yet they still feel like that they need to turn these characters gay. Like, oh, we need Captain America to be gay. Why do you need that? You know, why do you need these characters who are never meant to be gay to be gay? You know, and it's like, do you just want to destroy them? Do you just want to, like, you know, take the character and just, you know, basically make him worthless now in order to appease what, maybe, you know, 1% of the fan base? And I'm not just talking about the gay people. I mean, I'm sure amongst the gay people, there's maybe 1% of them who really wants to actually see Captain America be gay. I mean,
well, I don't know really what drives these people. It's as I said, modern leftism is just a relentless march directly in Cthulhu's Maw. I mean, there's no... I don't know. They just want to destroy everything.
Well, I mean, geez Louise, like, you know, especially with regular shows, I mean, just like modern shows, you cannot watch a show that's been made recently without it having at least several gay characters. We were watching, my wife and I, we were watching one show, and we just stopped because, like, every character was turning gay. I mean, or bi at the very least. Like, you know, it didn't even make any sense. Like, all of a sudden you had these two people who had no reason to be gay, and they just start kissing, like these two guys. And we're like, what in the world? It's like, okay, well, like I said, by that point, it was 70% of the characters in this show were gay or bi. I mean, I can get, you know, you have the one gay person or whatever, but it's like, why is everyone gay in this show? What in the world?
Well, as I said before, you know, when I saw this really creeping into comics 3, 4, 5 years ago, you know, I used to say, how is it that 3% of the population has ended up in the 90% of my comic books?
Oh, yeah, most people would think that they're 25% of the population.
Yeah, 1 to 3%. I mean, you know, it's not... We're not the Catholic Church. The percentage isn't that high. So here's another article we're going to talk about a little bit here. Oh, real quick, I'm going to go. The Captain Marvel trailer for Marvel came out. I think it looks okay. I'm probably not going to see it in the theater because I've basically sworn off the theater. I don't think it looks as bad as I feared it might. Yeah, Brie Olsen isn't much of an actress. There is a really funny moment in there where she punches an old lady on the bus, which confuses the hell out of people that aren't familiar with the source material. Now I know because they clearly introduce an alien race called the Skrulls in that trailer, and I know that the Skrulls are shapeshifters. So I assume that's why she punched an old lady on the bus, because it was really a Skrull. But nowhere in that trailer did they show the Skrulls shapeshifting. So all the normal people they're trying to appeal this movie to just saw Captain Marvel punch an old lady on the bus for no reason. So that's maybe not the best way to cut your trailer.
Worst of all, the character nothing looks particular. I don't know Captain Marvel outside of the few times I've heard her in the comic books, but she doesn't look interesting in this trailer. There's nothing interesting that catches my attention.
It really doesn't. I think it's kind of interesting being a period piece taking place in the 90s, like taking place in the past in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But it doesn't look bad. It just also doesn't look all that interesting. Like I'd probably watch it and get a kick out of it when it comes out on DVD. And that's about it. Like, it doesn't look like... It kind of reminds
me of the first Thor movie. Like, I'm getting, like, the same way I felt about the first Thor movie. That's how, like, I feel watching the trailer.
It doesn't look like a, Justice League or Batman v Superman disaster. You know what I mean? Which I kind of, for a while, feared it might end up being. But it also doesn't look all that great. It just looks okay. Like... Now, in all fairness to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they've had like 20 films so far, and the worst ones are okay. That's a pretty good track record. You got to give them that. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not necessarily going to see it in the theater. Again, because I've kind of sworn off the theater because Hollywood is run by a bunch of degenerate scumbags, plus the theater's become such a horrible place to go. I'm probably never going to the theater again in the foreseeable future unless it's like, a bunch of friends are going and I get invited or something like that.
Just for the sake of irony, I'm going to go see Michael Moore's latest opus.
Oh, jeez.
Fahrenheit 11/9, and the trailer was hilarious.
I bet you that's going to bomb because I haven't even heard shitlibs talking about that. So I don't think that's going to do well. That said, though, I did find, like I said, I found it really funny to watch her punch an old lady on the bus, and they give no explanation for that in the trailer. I'm like, people that aren't familiar with the source material have no idea. Hell, if they hadn't have shown a brief, like, glimpse of the Skrulls, even I would be like, what the fuck was that about?
The Skrulls, they look like Piccolo from the live action Dragon Ball movie. That's what they look like to me.
I could see that. One thing I think is funny in the Marvel canon, and I don't know if we'll reference this in the movie, but the Kree, the other alien race we see, they have basically two races in their species, right? One is blue skin, and the other is what they call pink skin. And the pink skin Kree look like just white people, right? And the thing about it is the pink skin Kree are basically like the ghetto trash minorities. Like they're the crappy ones that no one wants to be, So I always thought that was funny in the comic. Like the original Captain Marvel was one of the pink skin guys, and it was a big deal that he rose in the Kree army despite, being the shitty minority that no one likes. Like the pink skinned people did, like they were basically savages among the Kree. So I don't know how much they'll get into that in the Marvel movie, but we'll see. But yeah, I saw the trailer for it. I thought it looked okay. I mean, I don't think it's going to be a disaster. I think it's going to be okay.
I don't know much about Captain Marvel. I think the only thing I know is like, wasn't there like in X-Men, didn't like Mystique, or not Mystique, Rogue, like take her powers, or at least in the cartoon?
Well, the original Captain Marvel was Captain Marvel, and then Miss Marvel, Carol Danvers, was sort of a spin-off character of that. She got powers from the now they call Carol Danvers Captain Marvel. She's taken on that mantle, but she was called Miss Marvel for the longest time. And yeah, the reason Rogue can fly is that she permanently absorbed those powers from Carol Danvers, and she actually almost killed Carol Danvers doing that, and put her in a coma for a while, and caused, like, Carol Danvers had like massive mental health problems for a while as a result of that, because that some energy vampire ripped out a piece of her soul. So she was like an alcoholic for a while and stuff like that. Carol Danvers used to be a really interesting character until SJW Marvel turned her into a Mary Sue with a lesbian haircut.
Well, and then in DC, the guy who says Shazam, his real superhero name, though, is Captain Marvel, right?
Yes, but because
it's not Shazam. He says Shazam to transform.
Yeah, because of legal reasons, they can't use Shazam as the title for anything he's in, like a movie or comic book or show or whatever. But his name is Captain Marvel.
Oh, that's confusing.
Yeah. Comics are weird. There were
so
legal
we got
battles.
And there's a Captain live action Captain Marvel movie coming out. So you got the Marvel girl Captain Marvel, and you got the DC male Captain Marvel.
You got two Captain Marvels.
And the guy Captain Marvel looks a lot more fun, honestly.
Well, the guy Captain Marvel, he one of Marvel's best stories ever was something called The Death of Captain Marvel, in which that character died of cancer. And what was interesting was he had these bands called the Nega bands or something. There were these things that went on his wrist that gave him all the big cosmic powers that he would have. And the reason he ended up dying of cancer is, for a long time, these cosmic powered bands were fighting his cancer that he had, unbeknownst to himself. But then the cancer adapted to him, right? And it was at a point where, like, all these great minds in the Marvel Universe were trying to cure him of cancer, but any kind of cures, the Nega bands sort of fought against. You know what I mean? Like, they couldn't give him chemo or whatever, because these bands fought against it. But they couldn't take the bands off of him because he was so riddled with cancer. If they took the bands off of him, he'd be dead in like a minute. So the thing that was keeping him alive all that time, unbeknownst to him, was also the thing that prevented a more permanent cure from being administered to him. Which I thought was pretty clever writing within the confines of that fictional universe. But that's actually a really good comic, The Death of Captain Marvel. It's treated with a lot of weight. There's actually, because he's a member of the alien race, the Kree, and they were, bitter enemies with the Skrulls going back eons. And there's actually a moment where, he had kind of turned, early in that character's origin, he had kind of turned on the Kree to defend Earth, because the Kree were going to fuck over Earth. And so he was sort of banished from the Kree Empire. So as he was on his deathbed, no Kree officials, showed up on his deathbed, even though he was this great war hero for, years back. But there was actually a Skrull general that showed up to show respects to him, which was kind of a powerful moment. Like, he shows up and he's like, I'm here not because you are our enemy, but because you were one of our greatest enemy. May your reward for your bravery be great the next life, and all this other stuff. It was a pretty good read. Anyways, moving on from that, what else did I want? Oh yeah, here's a fun little article. Let's see if I can bring it up here. There we go. And this has been reported in a few places, but I'm getting this off theblast.com. And go ahead and screen share this. So the article is entitled Beyonce's former drummer claims singer molested her with dark magic and extreme witchcraft. A woman who once worked as a drummer for Beyonce claims the singer is wrapped up in practices of, quote, extreme witchcraft, unquote, and has been using her spells to run surveillance and control her finances. And now she wants a restraining order against Beyonce. According to a very bizarre court documents obtained by The Blast, Kimberly Thompson says she used to work for Beyonce. Quote, I worked for her as a drummer for her band for 7 years. She claims that for some reason, Beyonce started a campaign of harassment against her that includes, quote, extreme witchcraft, dark magic, and, quote, magic spells of sexual molestation. And she also claims the Lemonade star murdered her kitten. Thompson believes Beyonce has been tapping her phone and controlling her finances. It's not clear why Thompson believes the singer is allegedly doing all this, but she is adamant that it all stems from Beyonce. So, I don't necessarily know if this is true, but there's a part of me that really doesn't doubt this, because we're finding out more and more a lot of these elites are into some weird spirit cooking shit. And, Beyonce is, by all accounts, pure fucking evil. Like, it's... I remember this interview where Mike Myers was talking about, like, the Austin Powers series, and like, somebody asked him what it was like to work with Beyonce, because she was in a third movie, and it was so weird. Like, the color drained out of Mike Myers' face, and it looked like he was having, a Nam flashback, and he was just like, I don't want to talk about it. There's actually, the one song Destiny's Child had, it's called Survivor, which when you hear the lyrics, it sounds like it's one of those songs about, my ex left me, but I'm gonna be okay. But actually, that song was written about former band members of Destiny's Child that Beyonce screwed over. Like, she's an incredibly petty, evil bitch. So, it wouldn't surprise me if she's into all kinds of fucked up things and sacrificed a kitten to the devil or something. It really wouldn't surprise me.
Well, I mean, we're supposed to, listen and believe, right? And I mean, we don't know that it's true, but if it is, I mean, we can't support Beyonce, even if there's, just a chance that it might be true.
Well, there you go. I cannot stand Beyonce. Like, I'm somebody that likes, like, R&B type music and pop music, and I like the type of music Beyonce makes, and I can't stand any of her fucking music. Like, there's a little bit of Destiny's Child music from, like, the early 2000s that I think is tolerable, but if I hear most of her shit come on the radio, I'm like, change the channel or I'm going to run us all off the road. I'll kill us all to stop the pain if Single Ladies comes on the fucking radio.
Let's see, there was one song that was... I listened to, but most of the time, I don't really like that type of music in general. I don't know. I can't think of how it went. It was like back in the early 2000s, early 2000s, like 2003 or 4, somewhere in there where a song came out, but I can't remember what it was. It was okay.
I liked a couple of Destiny's Child songs when they were around. I mean, I say liked. Like, I never owned an album of them or something, but I liked them when I heard them on the radio. But, yeah, oh man, I just can't stand anything about her. Like, just...
So, Luke, will you be having any Beyonce songs on your karaoke streams?
Highly unlikely at this point, although I could never have the voice for her music anyway.
Luke's not ready for this jelly.
Oh, but I hated that song. What was Destiny's Child, Survivor?
Yeah, that was one of their songs.
I hate that song because the lyrics and timing just don't sound right. There's something off about that song.
No, is Destiny's Child, were they the group that came up, I Don't Want No Scrub?
No, that was TLC.
Okay, and then you had the guys come out and said, I don't want no pigeon. I remember that as a kid, just listening to that.
So in lighter news, than people cucking and witchcraft and shit like that, Sony announced a PS1 Mini, which is basically an NES Classic but for PlayStation. I don't think they've announced any real games, and unlike Nintendo, Sony doesn't have a lot of first party shit, so they're gonna have to you know, they're going to have to reach out to other companies for basically everything on it. But
And the controllers do not have any analog sticks on them.
oh, that's gay. I'm not super interested in this, to be honest, because part of it is I don't have really any nostalgia for PS1. I didn't have video games for basically the whole 5th generation. I was sort of out of video games at that time. But I don't know. I thought it would be fun. Like just talk about what you'd like to see on that. You know, what would be interesting. I think, you know, the 3 Spyro games and the 3 main Crash games are kind of no-brainers. There's obvious stuff like Final Fantasy VII or Resident Evil that you sort of associate with the PlayStation.
Okay, well, see, I mean, you know, for the Crash Bandicoot games, though, they recently came out with the trilogy, the original trilogy, you know, with the new graphics and everything like that. So, I mean, yeah, they'll probably have them on there, but I don't know how important it is to have that since,
well, same with
like I said,
Spyro,
you basically got these new games just with a fresh coat of paint on them already, you know?
Same with Spyro, but I can't imagine, you know, having a quote-unquote PS1 greatest hits on a little plug-and-play without at least Spyro and Crash 1 on there.
I mean, I think you'll have Lara Croft Tomb Raider on there,
I'd
maybe.
like that on there.
You'll probably have Metal Gear Solid. You might have Silent Hill. I don't know if they could do it, but you might be, you know, if Konami would play ball, I wouldn't mind necessarily having the original Silent Hill on there.
I'm sure Final Fantasy VII would be on there, but I'd like to see Final Fantasy Tactics. I think Tactics is extremely underrated. It's the only Final Fantasy game I've played through all the way, but I love it. It's one of my favorite games ever.
Is that coming to the Switch? I know there's a whole lot of Final Fantasy games coming to the Switch, like 7, 10, 10-2, I think one other one.
I'm really not sure. A lot of the stuff that I'd want to see on it that are PS1 games that I'd be interested in are kind of licensed games that you're not likely to see. Like,
yeah,
you
Twisted
know,
Metal would be good too. I remember that was a really fun game.
Like, I'd love to see the Marvel vs. Capcom games, like Marvel vs. Capcom 1, X-Men vs. Street Fighter, those kind of games. Marvel Superheroes. You might see, like, the Street Fighter Alpha games on there. I'd like to see, like, that 2000 Spider-Man game on there, but again, you know, licensed games, you're not likely to see them on there.
If you had a sister that grew up in the 90s, I'm sure, you know, just adding this down, the Spice Girl one, I remember my sister had that playing that. Spice Girl video game.
I didn't even know that existed.
Oh, man, she used to play that thing. Like, you make your own music video. Like, one of it was like it was a timing game where, like, you know, like you have to press the right button at the right beat, kind of like DDR, but with a controller. I don't know. Of course, let's see. The Resident Evil, Lara Croft, the Spyro, the Bandicoot, Metal Gear Solid. Those are the main things I know as far as the PlayStation. I mean, with the Final Fantasy stuff.
You might see like an
I
oddball
feel like
on there, like
it's
Croc.
really cheap. Like, I think they would have been better off doing a PS2 classic than just a PS1 classic. I mean, I know it makes sense to maybe start with PS1, but I think more people would have rather have seen a PS2 classic. If you're going to copy Nintendo, you might as well copy it with one of the best things that you have, which I think was the PS2.
Yeah, like I said, you might see an oddball like Croc or something on there. But I don't know. I don't know what else would be on there. Like I said, I wasn't really into video games heavily around that time. I know I'd probably get like an N64 classic before I'd get it.
Well, there's a rumor going around that there might be an N64 classic.
I would think they'd do that, but then again, I don't understand why Nintendo didn't make enough of the damn NES and Super Nintendo classics. I know they just put out a new batch of them and all, but you know, they could have sold way more than they did. I don't know what they're thinking sometimes.
I don't know, especially the SNES. Of course, I don't know why they don't do the digital console anymore. I mean, I really like that. I think a lot of people have been asking for that since the Switch. Like, I mean, you know, we kind of got that with the online stuff, but you know, I don't just put the virtual console on there and just put the games on there.
I think they're working on something along those lines. I don't think what they have right now is how they intend to keep it. I think they're working on something. I get the impression that they've got something brewing along that front.
Yeah, Guilty Spark in the comments. He's mentioned a bunch of great games. Gran Turismo's, Gundam Battle Assault. Oh, I love that game. That was fun. Blood Omen, Soul Reaver. I remember playing Soul Reaver. I only saw I was over at a friend's house with Blood Omen. But you're right, all those. I haven't played Wild 9. All of those would be great games.
Somebody's in the chat says both NES and SNES classics are pretty common now from what I've seen. I know the NES classic is decently easy to find. I managed to scoop one up. I haven't seen any SNES classics out in the wild.
I saw like 5 at Walmart today in the case there.
Maybe. I wouldn't mind getting one of those.
I mean, I don't know maybe about them.
To
They were
do it
there
right now, but I wouldn't mind getting one of those at some point.
I was able to get one for my sister for Christmas last year. She really likes it because, I mean, that was the first console that we ever had was the SNES. So like I remember playing Super Mario World, which I think is still my favorite Mario game, is Super Mario World.
I remember when the NES Classic came out, the day job I had at the time, all the office ladies were coming up to me because they knew I was into old games, and they were trying to see if I knew where they could find one because nobody could find one. And I remember thinking that's such a missed opportunity. Like Nintendo could have sold so many of these. Like I remember arguing with Undertow a little bit at the time, and he was like, "Yeah, but how many of them actually bought it?" And I'm like, "None of them could. You know, none of them could find the damn thing." But yeah, people love that, man.
One thing that I noticed, I mean, which is not a huge deal, but I just noticed is like I didn't see any amiibos anymore, and I hadn't really heard much about them either. I think that's sort of dying down.
I don't think they're making enough for them. Arlo, the YouTuber that has that little blue puppet that looks like a Sesame Street puppet, he did a really interesting video where he talked about how Nintendo's at this sweet spot where they basically just make enough of the amiibos for the guys that really, really want them at first, and they're not as hard to find, but they basically disappear after a week, except for the ones no one wants. Like, you know, you can go to the store and you can find Waluigi and Daisy and all the Animal Crossings, and that's it. But he mentioned that he thought that what they should have done is made some sort of Skylanders type game. They should have made a specific amiibo game where it's some sort of adventure game where you get to play as the character you scan in. That's what they should have done. And he thought that that's something they were going to come out with on the Switch, but at this point they're not going to. And
I don't think that would have been good because I mean those games are sort of dying. You know that whole genre was kind of was going out. I mean you kind of had that with Smash. You know you could scan the amiibo in, and if your character was in Smash, then you know you could have your character there. But I mean you know like for an example, there's a game coming out called Starlink, which is essentially that you know you have the toy, you scan it in, and then the toy's in the video game. And a lot of people don't actually like that. I mean you know they're not thrilled about that feature. They would have just preferred just a straight up game.
I think it would have sold with Nintendo. See, the problem is there's nothing. Nintendo has this difficult tightrope where it's like they can't put any good shit on the amiibo, or people will complain about, shit's locked behind an amiibo. But at the same time, they want to put something on there so the people that buy the amiibos get something. Like a good example is, you can only have your little Wolflink buddy in Breath of the Wild if you have the Wolflink amiibo, right? And nobody's really complained about that because it kind of feels natural. It feels like, okay, you can have Wolflink if you have Wolflink, and it's not a huge thing that you need in the game. And when you're far enough along, it's not even really all that helpful. But it's just something cool that's attached to the amiibo. There's a lot of cool costumes with Zelda amiibos you can get. I don't know. It's a difficult tightrope. Like, a lot of people complained about how, the Metroid amiibo was the only way you could play a Zero Suit, Fusion Suit Samus in Metroid Returns, or Samus Returns remake, It's a bit of a tightrope. I just think it would... I think they could have made a decent amiibo type game, where, you want to play... And then, they would have had to actually, pump out some amiibos with it. It could have been extremely profitable, but it would have been a bit more risky than just make enough for the collectors each time.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I feel like Nintendo is not living up to their potential right now. Like, I mean, again, I like Nintendo. I think, like, the Switch, I don't feel like the Switch has reached its full potential. I think there's still a lot of things that they could be doing with the Switch in terms of games, in terms of other things of it being the console. And it just hasn't gotten there yet. Like, I mean, again, I love it. I think it's a great idea. I think it's very forward thinking. In my opinion, it's probably going to be where games, gaming systems more go in the future. At least that's what I think. But it's not at its full potential yet. There's so many different ways in which it could be improved. And like the online stuff, like I think people have blown that out of proportion in terms of their outrage over it. But at the same time, it's like, this is not much of an offering. I mean, this is the most bare bones thing you could offer us, to the point where it's like, well, yeah, why even charging for it then?
I agree. There's definitely, I always thought that, it's only been in recent years that I've seen a large amount of Nintendo toys on the shelf. I remember when I was a kid, there wasn't a lot of it. There were a few Mario figurines, and I think I had a Link figure that I could find. But I remember years and years would go by, and you'd see almost no Nintendo merchandise. And in the last few years, that's changed. But I always thought Nintendo should do a little bit more of licensing their IPs out. I understand why they're gun shy about it. They had the Mario movie disaster and all, but you could probably have a really, really awesome Mario animated series, or Zelda, or Metroid, or Kirby, or any number of their stuff. Maybe Animal Crossing or something. You could probably have a really well-made Zelda comic book or Metroid comic book over at Archie or IDW or one of those companies. And as long as you're selling it to people aren't going to shit up your brand, when you sell the rights to somebody, it's basically pure profit. It's basically, somebody wants to make a Mario cartoon, so they give you money to make a Mario cartoon, and then they share part of their profit. It's low risk and high reward, again, assuming you sit down with the people and make sure they're not fucking idiots, and they're not going to shit up your brand.
Well, I mean, I'm glad that they're actually starting to do this some with their own brands, like in terms of the games. Like, I think Mario plus Rabbids, that was a risky move, but then it paid off. Mario plus Rabbids is a great game. Hyrule Warriors is a game that's really paid off. I mean, that's even on the Wii U, that thing sold 1 million units. With the Zelda. I mean, well, okay, maybe it was the Wii U plus the 3DS combined, but even still, it was a. It still sold 1 million units on both of those systems, and then I think it sold a bunch on the Switch too, and then with the Star Fox on the coming out, or with the Battle for Atlas. So it's great to see them using some of these IPs more, and it's like, well, if we're not going to do anything with it, then at least we can give it to this other third party company here to use it as a cameo or do their own thing with it.
Even something as simple as the last few years they reprinted the Zelda comic book that was in Nintendo Power. And the Mario comics that were in Nintendo Power, they reprinted them into big trades and all. But I mean, there's a lot of other comics that were in Nintendo Power, like, other Nintendo franchises that, like, I'd scoop up a Metroid or hell, even a Star Fox one, and I don't care about Star Fox that much, just to check them out. I mean, it's pretty hard to find the actual issues of Nintendo Power, to complete that crap. And that's, again, pure profit. I mean, it's something you own. It's something you own that all you have to do is send back to the presses. I mean, there's a lot of money on the table Nintendo doesn't necessarily take. And
yeah, I mean, again, I understand them being sort of gun shy, and I mean, like, it's one of the things I don't push too much, because I mean, I think it's worked out well for Nintendo sometimes in not jumping ahead on things. Like, everyone's like, oh, Nintendo needs to do the VR stuff, and I was like, no, I don't think they need to do it. I think they were wise not to invest a whole lot in that, because I mean, that was gimmicky, and no one really talks as much about VR right now. It didn't take like people thought. So that was a smart move on Nintendo's part to not really get invested in that. But then there are other things though that have been proven to be successful, and yet they're still not really getting involved in it like they could, or maybe even like they should, to where it just, they have such great ideas that, and they can take, regular ideas and make them really great with their own twist. But then they don't do that. They're so gun shy sometimes that it is one of the weaknesses of the company.
Yeah. And
which again, is so weird, because on the other hand, they're so crazy in other areas.
I'm never one that says Nintendo needs to do X, Y, or Z, because Nintendo doesn't really need to do anything. All right, even the Wii U was perhaps their lowest point, and it did okay. I mean, it made money. They weren't losing money. Yeah, they were in third place. They were in a profitable third place the whole last generation, as opposed to Microsoft and Sony game divisions were, hemorrhaging money first and second place. So I'm not one to say Nintendo needs to do X, Y, or Z. Like I'm Rich from Review Tech USA. If Nintendo doesn't do this thing I want them to do, then they're finished. Nintendo needs to have more Call of Madden games, or they're finished. But at the same time, there is stuff they could do that just would be pretty easy to do, and something I would have thought would have been a good idea. They had the 3DS. They had the 3DS, right? and they had an eShop on the 3DS. Why don't you take the Virtual Boy games and put them on the 3DS eShop? Like, I bet you people would have bought them. Like, just take Wario Land Virtual Boy, Mario Tennis, Mario Clash, all your first party things, and just throw them on there. It probably would have taken an afternoon worth of coding to port them onto the eShop, and boom, there you go.
Well, I mean, you've got some games on the 3DS that were also on the Wii U or that are on the Switch, like Fire Emblem Warriors on the Switch and the 3DS. Well, but it seems to only go from the home console to the handheld. We don't see a lot of games that were on the handheld to go to the home console. Like, I mean, I think it would be great to get the Majora Mask remake or the Ocarina of Time remake for the Switch, but they don't do that. And it's like, I don't really want to buy a 3DS just to play those games, so I mean, I'm just okay to do without. But if you were to put them on the Switch, since I already have that, well, then I'd be happy to get them then, to play the remakes. And I feel like it would be easy enough to, get them on there without a whole lot of effort. And I know a lot of people would probably be in the same boat, to where they don't want to buy a 3DS, they don't really want that, but they would be okay if they had it on the Switch. And there's a bunch of other games that they could do that with. Those are just two examples.
You could put Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask on the same little disc, or not disc, a little cartridge probably, and sell them as a 2-pack.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it would be that hard, and I'm pretty sure they would sell well.
Yeah, I think people would pay $60 for the both of them, maybe 40.
Yeah, I mean,
but I think you could probably go as high as 60, and people would pay for it.
Yeah, I mean, people would complain. I agree with you. It's not one of those things where it's like Nintendo needs to do it. I'm not saying they need to do anything. I'm just saying that it would work better for them, And so one of the basic things would be, having some of the media apps on the Switch, like having Netflix on there, having YouTube on there. Like, I think it would be nice to be able to watch YouTube on the Switch. It's not something that I need. I'm not saying the console is less for it, but it could be more with it. And it doesn't seem like, I mean, again, they have Hulu on there. And the Netflix app, it's been said, is ready to go. They're just waiting on Nintendo to give them the go-ahead. And it's like, well, what are you waiting for?
Yeah.
I mean, again, on the one hand, I don't need it. It's not important. It's not a big deal. It's just like, but why not? If you have it on there, if it's not that big of a deal, then why not just go ahead and get it on there?
Yeah. I don't know. Sometimes I don't know what they're thinking. I really don't.
But, then someone in the comment, Guilty Spark, is saying controversy over Toadette being able to transform into Peach. I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, I saw in, I didn't know there was controversy, but I saw in, they're porting the new Super Mario's U onto the Switch, and you can play as Toadette, and there's some power-up where she turns into Peach. Like, she looks like Peach in this power-up. I don't know why. I didn't know there was controversy about it.
That's not the port I would have had. I would have done 3D World over Super Mario U.
Oh yeah, 3D World's really good. Super Mario
I didn't really like Super Mario Bros. U. I mean, I don't know. I like 3D World. If I was going to port a game, I would have ported that. That's interesting that they changed it. I mean, I guess that makes sense. I would rather have Toadette than just another color of Toad.
I guess I might take callers if anybody on the Discord wants to call in. A few topics I'd like to hear from people. If you have any interest in the PS1 Mini, I'd like to hear what games you'd like on it. I mentioned this on Gab, but it was kind of an interesting topic. It'd be interesting to hear if anybody has any owns any sports games, because I notice among a lot of gamers, people sneer at sports games, and I understand why. I kind of do too. But I was sort of the other day looking at my game shelf and realized, I actually own a few sports games. I have Blades of Steel on the NES and the Game Boy. I have NHL 97 on the on the Genesis and NHL Hockey on the Game Gear. And I have NBA Jam Tournament Edition on the Super Nintendo.
So, yeah, NBA Jam.
So, it'd be interesting to hear anybody has any experience with those most normie of super or video games. What else do we got this week?
My wife likes the old FIFA games. She's played a couple of those. And my brother-in-law likes FIFA. That's about, like I said, for me, I don't really play a lot of the sports games.
I have some old ones just for the nostalgia of it. I doubt it. I played a recent Madden at my little cousin's house a couple months ago, and I don't know how to play Madden. I barely know what the rules of football are because I really don't like football at all. And I still did okay against him because it's basically just pick a play and watch a cutscene.
Now, there was a pretty good Mario soccer game on the Wii I remember playing. I can't think of the name of it, but it was like a Mario soccer. That was pretty fun.
Well, yeah, I've played some like Mario tennis games and Mario sports games over the years. As a little kid, I had golf on the NES, and I don't know why. I just had it. I don't know where it came from.
What's the name of the game where it's soccer with cars? I can't think of the name right now. It's really popular.
I don't know.
You know, you drive the car and you try to hit the ball into the goal. It's a really popular game. A lot of people have been...
Rocket League?
Rocket League, yeah, that's it. Have y'all played that?
I've seen people play it. It looks interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I could not think of the name of that thing. I knew what it was. I'm like, gosh, I cannot think of the name of this game. But people love that game. I mean, that thing is insanely popular.
All right. Tell you what. Let's instead of Skype, let's move over to Discord because that way I can let in callers. All right. So hop into the Discord and hop into the voice channel. All right, guys. I'll meet you there. All right. So Luke should be on here soon. And hopefully Pastor Tom will be able to work his way into here. All right. So if anybody wants to call in, hop into the Discord and call in that way. And
Does it work?
We should be able to hear you. I hear you, Luke. Hopefully.
Oh yeah, I had to leave out the Skype because otherwise I couldn't hear your voice.
Yeah, that's why I wanted you guys to move over. I don't see Pastor Tom yet. Hopefully, I didn't abandon him. I don't know how to get into the Discord.
Does Pastor Tom? I actually don't remember if Pastor Tom has a Discord.
I think he should. If he doesn't, I'll send him a link. Pretty sure he's in here, but let's see. I'll send him a link if he doesn't have one. Oh, damn it. Hang on, sorry. Discord's just being a little gay on me. Because, it's Discord. Nothing works anymore. Look, did you see you see that YouTube conspiracy thing? Where it's like the alternative media network or something that's where it was like, it looked like somebody from the mainstream media had drawn this chart of all the big YouTube channels and like connected them with strings.
Yeah.
Like,
everyone's 6 steps away from being a Nazi.
It just...
And as everyone else has pointed out, it's almost like it was made by this girl who basically said, I'm not nearly as popular as these channels. I'm going to shut them down so I can be more popular. Oh, it's still hilarious. It's so hilarious, though very sad.
Oh, man. And I think that chart was kind of old, too, because, like, Ralph wasn't on there. And he's blown up recently. And I think, like, Reformed Thomas is in here. Okay, cool. There you go. I see Pastor Tom in here. So yeah, like Ralph wasn't on there. I think like Worski was bigger on that chart than he really has been lately. I think that chart's kind of old. I think it's a little outdated. Oh man.
Oh yeah, because apparently Ben Shapiro and Richard Spencer are only one interview away from being on the same part with each other.
Well, as we all know, Ben Shapiro's a huge white nationalist. Oh, that reminds me. I gotta share this. This is fucking hilarious. Let me find this tweet. This is
I see you put the Trump wall gif on your feed.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I gotta figure out how to make one of those.
So there's a YouTuber, or not well, he is a YouTuber. He just mostly has videos of his mom like eating food or something. It's really weird. But this guy on Twitter tweeted this out. White supremacist YouTuber Bechtloff is terrified of HuffPo reporters who he believes wants to kill all conservative white men. So, folks, if you're on Twitter, could you give this guy a retweet so we can help expose that evil Bechtloff white supremacist? I'd appreciate that. Because this Bechtloff guy can't keep getting away with it. All right.
What's his name? Flying over trout?
What is it with cucks and trout? Like, is that
pregnant trout?
What? Why are they all about trouts? Is that the official fish of cuckoldry? I don't understand. Like, I don't know what's going on there, folks. Pastor Tom, you able to hear us?
I hear someone typing and poking and prodding, but I don't think he can hear us.
Uh-oh. That's still good. Sam, what's on your mind? You hopped into the channel here.
Unmute yourself so you can hear you.
Unmute yourself there. You mute it. Sam Kevorkian. I love that name. What's on your mind there, man?
Hey, can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Okay, there's no background noise or anything.
You sound all right.
Thanks. Yeah, I was just thinking about Nintendo. I think if they have more games that utilize the Joy-Cons, that would be great.
Well, one of the things I like about the Switch is that the games so far have a tremendous, I guess, choice in how you play it. Like, so far, I've only played the Switch as a portable device. I have my Joy-Cons attached to the side, and I use it as a handheld. I haven't hooked it up to a TV or anything like that. I mean, I could. It's just that I don't have a lot of TVs in my house, and I don't have one in my room. And, I like to be able to play it in my room. So I like that versatility. But, so I can't really speak to how well the Joy-Cons are used by a lot of them. I know there's games like 1-2 Switch or whatever, which, by the way, should have been a pack-in. There's no way you should be selling 1-2 Switch as its own game. That should have been a pack-in. That's Wii Sports kind of shit, okay? That's just showing off what the thing can do, goofy party game. They shouldn't have sold that as a separate game. That was dumb.
Because the one thing that Nintendo did right with the Wii, that they didn't copy that to the same extent with the Wii U or the Switch. Party games, the whole stick control, the Wii controls, the motion controls pretty much. The game that utilizes it pretty well is ARMS. Have you heard of that game?
Yeah, I've heard of ARMS. ARMS looks really good. It's kind of low on the list of games I personally want. Not that it's bad. It's just there's a lot of great games I'd get before that.
It kind of has like a Dreamcast type vibe.
I can kind of see that. It does almost sort of have a early 2000s Sega vibe to it.
Actually, it's sad that Dreamcast didn't do that well because it had a lot of good games on it.
Yeah, I never had a Dreamcast, so I couldn't tell you. But I know it had a lot of better versions of games that were on the PS1. Like, I know all the Marvel vs. Capcom type games are way better on the Dreamcast.
I own a Dreamcast. It was much more clear images.
Didn't it have like better graphics than first year PS2 games? I mean, didn't a lot of Dreamcast games look better than PS2 games that were released within the first year?
From what I understand, yeah. Okay, apparently Pastor Tom informs me he can't get the Discord to work, so. But I'm just going to take a few more callers anyways and wrap up, so no big deal. But yeah, like I said, I never had a Dreamcast, so I couldn't really tell you firsthand.
Yeah. I've never had Dreamcast. My only experience with it is playing it at friends' houses and my friends bringing it over to my house back in high school. When I first saw Resident Evil Code Veronica, I thought it looked amazing. Like I couldn't stop staring at the screen, and my friend just like because I couldn't stop staring at the screen. Yeah, I think Dreamcast was a pretty good system. I thought feel about 3D Sonic games, but I remember seeing the Dreamcast Sonic game was pretty cool.
Yeah, I had a buddy that had a Saturn, actually, of all fucking things. You know, one of the 9 people that had a Saturn in North America.
Yeah.
But I remember he got a lot of Japanese import games, which back then, I mean, this was when the internet barely existed as a commercial thing. I mean, this was like 97. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you could order stuff online, but people didn't really do that often. So he had like, I don't even know where he was getting these. It was like an older brother or something was getting them for him. But I remember one game, and it was something, I think it was called Pretty Fighter. But like you played as like these little anime girls. It was a fighting game, and they were all some sort of, you know, anime girl fantasy. Like one was a police woman, one was a teacher, one was a schoolgirl, all this crap. And the moves were all like vaguely sexual, like you spank your opponent or something. Like there's one move where you summon, I guess, your boyfriend. There's just this dude like runs across the screen in his boxer shorts and like plows through the other person. But yeah, and the cutscenes were all like borderline pornography. They were in Japanese, so we didn't know what they were saying, but not that it mattered.
Sounds like it would be totally up Anita Sarkeesian's alley.
Oh yeah, big Anita Sarkeesian game.
Yeah. Actually, a Saturn, from what I remember, I thought it was pretty cool. Like I've liked many games on the Saturn, such as I didn't own a Saturn because I was very little at the time, and my mom wouldn't buy me one. She bought me a 4 instead, which at first I was very angry about that. But, you know, in hindsight, that it was actually a better decision that she bought 1064. Virtual Cop was pretty cool. Like, I mean, I used to play it in the arcade all the time. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that game.
I haven't played that. Well, the other thing I played at a buddy's house, I played a little bit of a game called Bug, which was a very early attempt at a 3D platformer. The character designs in it were pretty cool. Like there was a lightning bug enemy that actually had like a power cord, like a plug at the end of his ass to shoot lightning out.
Nice.
Was
this before
Daytona 500? Of course, that was a classic on the Saturn. There was actually a code where you could play as a horse, an automatic or a manual horse. Interestingly enough, I don't know how exactly you shift a horse, but all right. Not even a guy on a horse, just a horse. I remember you could ride the track the wrong way, and the announcer would be yelling, "Turn around! You're going the wrong way!" at you. I think those laps still counted because I seem to remember us doing like races the wrong way. I remember playing the Marvel Superheroes fighting game on there a lot with him, which was the first time I ever saw the character Shuma Gorath, I believe. Even as much of a Marvel fan as I was, I never even seen that character. He's basically the Marvel version of Cthulhu, and has popped up in Doctor Strange comics a few times. It was a really weird choice to put him in there. But, you know, good times. Good times all around.
Yeah. Another interesting game, like there were so many interesting games on the Saturn that looked interesting to me as like a little kid at the time. All these games look totally cool, but I don't know if they've aged well.
Well, yeah, a lot of the early 3D games did not. Okay, somebody just sent this to me. This is fucking funny. All right, so I don't think I'm gonna be clicking on much of this screen, but okay, so this is theporndude.com. The guy who runs my Discord sent this to me. This is apparently a guy who just reviews porn sites. Porn Dude reviews the best porn sites of 2018. All free and premium porn sites are safe and sorted by quality. Wow.
You gotta be kidding me.
That's what you do with yourself, man.
Who pays for porn in 2018?
Who fucking reviews porn? Like, I'm a porn connoisseur. I want to review it. And, like, what the hell, man?
What's to organize and manipulate? Like how much money was spent on the project?
I don't know. I don't want to click on anything like live because then, I'm not screen sharing this. Let's fucking see what it's called.
Obviously,
I'm okay. So all right. So he reviews. You know what? Let's be funny about it. Let's search for watching my mom go black. All right.
Please.
So, and it doesn't look like he has. The only result that came up was a site called Deep Fake Porn Site. So apparently he hasn't reviewed that. I wonder if you just review okay. Okay, so he does have just the dog fart thing, it looks like. Okay, so he has Dog Fart Network, which I guess is just all those sites. Why would you do this with your fucking life? Like,
it's like
according to this guy, black is only the 20th best top premium porn site. So I think this guy might be racist. Okay, so he reviews. What the fuck?
Maybe man? He's just objective.
He's an objective journalist of porn.
Objective journalist that's colorblind.
Like, what the hell, man?
But
imagine him answering how he makes money.
What do you do? Well, I'm a movie reviewer. I review a lot of short films. Like, this is what you're doing with your life. Like, this is where you want to be. I review porn.
I assume that most people just watch porn for, like, they just go on Pornhub for 5 minutes and take care of their business and move on. Like, I can't understand how anybody, like, a hobby and a passion.
But, like, how could you even review porn? Like, how could you objectively review the quality of porn you're not into? You know what I mean? Like, okay, if this man is straight, how is he supposed to, like, review gay porn and tell gay guys what's the best gay porn? You know what I mean? Like, how could you possibly review porn? I don't understand how that could be a thing.
Well, just get a bisexual guy to review. You know, you have to be a bisexual, I guess.
Oh my god. Somebody doing that for a living. That's what the fuck they do with their lives.
Yeah. If you review enough porn, you'll eventually become bisexual. And then some.
What the hell's wrong with people? Alright. Gradol, you got anything on your mind? Because I'm probably going to wrap this up soon.
Like, that PayPal thing with Alex Jones, the more I hear about stuff like this, I think the more I just don't care to use the internet anymore.
You know, I had this weird theory, and we'll see if this pans out. But, you know, as technology for printing and even book binding becomes more accessible and cheaper, even with, you know, doing it even within your home, and the internet becomes more horrific and Orwellian, I wonder if we're going to see an odd resurgence of print as a means of just independently distributing things.
And that's why I'm wondering, are a lot of people just going to move away from the internet and just do other things?
I don't know. I mean, a lot of us are gonna end up fucking banned from it at this rate.
I'm thinking social media in particular. I'm banned from Twitter completely. There's no way of getting past that. And same would happen if I go on Facebook, Instagram, anywhere else, unless I'm just doing basic bitch shit. I mean, was there really a point for me? I just like to use sites like Twitter for talking shit. I mean, I can't do that anymore. What's the point?
Well, you know, a lot of these leftists complain that they didn't see the 2016 election coming. Well, yeah, that's because this storm was brewing behind that block list you threw up. I mean, it sort of reaches a point where, you know, how did something like Gamergate happen? Because all these sites, you know, all these like gaming sites and these, you know, YouTube channels and all, they blocked everybody. And eventually those people found each other and started talking. I mean, you know, if you block everybody, you've ultimately only blocked yourself. So yeah, these social media companies are shooting themselves in the foot. I mean, Facebook is kind of smart about it because Facebook likes to hand out the timeouts. You notice that? They like to put you in a 3-day or week or even month suspension.
Twitter does that.
Twitter is much quicker to just throw you off though. I got like one fucking suspension and then was thrown off, whereas I've been zucked a couple of times on my fucking Facebook.
I remember being banned for saying the writing of a cartoon was absolute shit.
But
like, I wasn't even attacking anyone.
Oh, you're banned for being to the right of Karl Marx. Like I said, like, these sites need to be brought to heel. There's no getting around it.
You were IP banned much quicker than me, and you said much less offensive things.
Yeah, like I said, these sites need to they need to be brought to heel. There's no other way around it. And fuck all these useful idiots who want to be like, well, it's not censorship if the government doesn't do it. Let's just let it happen. No, let's not.
I have a very simple saying that will get some noggins working.
What's that?
Liberty requires helicopter fuel.
Or as I saw somebody post under one of these articles, the tree of liberty is thirsty as fuck.
Oh.
No, the exact quote was, the tree of liberty is thirsty as an H1V at a strip club.
You know, they often say the price of freedom is blood. With the price of blood, they'll usually specify whose blood.
I mean, all these people, wait, at least the government's not doing it. Like, look, our founding fathers didn't write the First Amendment, and they were like, boy, I sure do hope a bunch of godless bugmen in Silicon Valley get to decide what we all say and think.
Yeah.
Like I said, you got to do something about this. Or it's
a lot of what I appreciate about the alt-right, even though they're wrong in a million ways, is the fact that they're falling for the same cuck mentality that you need to stick by your principles no matter what.
There are a few hills I'm willing to die on. But, you know, playing fair with men that wish to see me lined up against the wall is not one of them.
I mean, I don't think the U.S. Constitution is a hill worth dying on.
Controversial.
I like the Constitution a lot, but it's not a suicide pact. Oh, apparently Tom Bombadil wants to jump in and stump for the Catholic Church. By all means. By all means. Well,
this should be fun.
Okay.
I mean, I spent a lot of time shitting on the evangelicals today, didn't I? So, you know, if you insist that I shit on the Catholics some, I guess I can. I was going to kind of leave it be on today's episode, but fine. I mean, I'll shit on them too. you know.
And he could hop in at any time. He could just hop into the voice channel.
I don't know. I might wrap this up here in a minute, but I'll give him a minute in case he wants to hop on, and I'll probably wrap this up. Folks, if you enjoy the content I put out...
oh, he's here.
Oh, there he is. Well, I'll go ahead and go through the spiel anyways. If you enjoy the content I put out, do check out the PayPal, Patreon, Amazon wishlist, all that good stuff. And you can always send a super chat through Streamlabs. So, Tom, what's on your mind? Apparently nothing. You there, Tom?
How dare you talk about Mary like that, Bechtloff?
How dare I do what now?
How dare you talk about our Holy Mother like that?
Well, I don't believe I brought
Did you
Mary
say
up.
something about Mary on the stream earlier when I was
Your
in the
mother, Bechtloff.
Well, I don't think you want to compare Mary to my mother. That's not fair to Mary. My mother was a bitch.
Yikes.
Well, I'll say Mary is my mother.
I'm sure Mary was an extraordinary person, but that's quite a bit of worship going on there.
Oh, they're really
So all you guys
the
do is
Catholics.
you sing, "Mary, did you know that your baby boy is the son of God," or whatever that dumb song is.
Well, we mainly sang it during Christmas.
Yeah, that's it. A pagan holiday, by the way.
Okay.
Which reminds
Well,
me, I
why-
think I'm doing a Christmas stream, by the way. I think I'm going to probably do a Christmas Eve. Probably somewhat late. I'm thinking like maybe 10 or 11. Do kind of a late night Christmas Eve stream. Because I'm usually up late anyways. And what the hell else am I going to do? So, I'm thinking of doing that. I'm also thinking of doing a Halloween
Maybe go
stream. I haven't decided the
to
time.
mass.
What's this?
To mass.
Do what? Take mass?
Yeah, I don't know. It's because Catholics usually go on mass during Christmas Eve.
Oh, well, I don't know. The church I go to doesn't do a Christmas Eve thing. And I do like a Christmas Eve dinner with my dad and a few of my closer friends. But I mean, once that's done, that'll be, probably later in the evening I'll do something. My dad and a few of my closer friends, we actually go to a hibachi grill each year, Christmas Eve. Sort of a tradition.
I don't really like going to places on Christmas Eve. Even though, like, Christmas is not in the Bible, but, like...
Well, I used to really like going places with my dad on Christmas and Christmas Eve because, like, nobody else did. Like, we'd go to the movies sometimes on Christmas, and it'd just be like us and the Jews, basically. But nowadays, everybody fucking goes to the movies on Christmas. You can't get anywhere near the place.
Yeah, it's like everybody is every single day of the week. It's kind of annoying that people don't ever spend time with family. Like that they and malls are always full, and it's at least where I live in Silicon Valley as big of a problem where you live.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of the malls are dying these days, but I don't mind it. I like going out. Like I said, I'm spending time with very close friends and my dad and all. But yeah, I like see, a lot of it is I don't like a lot of the food a lot of people make on these kind of holidays. I don't like that kind of country kitchen, quote unquote traditional food. I I have a very un-American palate in a lot of ways. So
Are you talking about honey glazed ham or
I kind of like
turkey?
a honey baked ham. I don't like turkey much at all. Like I don't like gravy. I don't like a lot of that country kitchen shit. When I cook, it's usually kind of, when I cook, it tends to be either like Asian or very Mediterranean in how I cook, or maybe kind of a Tex-Mex thing going on.
Okay. Actually, turkey by itself's pretty flavorless, but it tastes good with gravy.
Yeah, I can't stand gravy. To me, all that stuff looks
Gravy.
it looks like slop. It looks like gruel. It looks like you should be serving this to an orphan in a Charles Dickens novel.
Actually, I've heard that Thanksgiving food was originally Native American food. I'm not sure how true that is.
I kind of doubt it.
There was a show on a couple years ago called Sleepy Hollow. It got canceled, but it was like some guy from like, colonial American times gets transported to the present day, and they're fighting some sort of, evil monsters and supernatural shit and all, whatever. But there was some episode around Thanksgiving in which like the present day person was all like, yeah, you eat all that traditional food like the Pilgrims had, like, pies and cranberry sauces and turkey. And the guy just looks at her like she said the dumbest shit. And she's like, what? And he goes, they didn't have sugar to make pies, let alone sauces. And he goes, and they served venison, not turkey. For Christ's sakes, it would have been a miracle if a half-starved pheasant would have wandered into their camp.
They had Steve's jerky for Thanksgiving.
There you go. That's what you should all order for your Christmas dinner, Steve Jerky. Oh, man. Steve's Jerky is great. I actually got like a message on the Discord just the other day where somebody was like, wow, this stuff really is great.
Question.
I love how Steve uses his real face and he just posts about being pissed off at like McDonald's workers and shit on the Discord, and he owns a business.
Wait, who did that?
I love how Steve owns a business and he just posts all this stuff on the Discord. That's pretty ballsy, if you ask me.
I know Aaron Clary posted.
I remember us telling him not to do that.
Yeah, I remember Aaron Clary posted that shit, but he doesn't give a fuck.
Huh.
But anyways, who said they have a question? Somebody has a question. What's your question? So somebody earlier said I have a question.
Yeah. No, I'm asking, like, have you tried playing some of the modern PC games such as Skyrim?
I have not played Skyrim. No, I don't have any interest in it. Especially now that I've played Breath of the Wild. I mean, it's like, hey, Bechtloff, would you like to play Breath of the Wild only in a far less interesting universe? No thanks, I'm good. Would you like to play generic Breath of the Wild?
How about The Witcher 3? Are you interested in that?
I've never played any of the Witcher games. Nothing about it really grabs my attention.
Bechtloff worships amiibos.
Yep, I'm all about the amiibos. Well, I'm going to probably wrap this up. Pastor Tom, thanks for being on. Sorry you couldn't join us on the Discord with technical issues. And Luke, thanks as always for being on. Folks, like I said, if you enjoy the show, do consider supporting it. The PayPal, Patreon, Amazon wishlist, all that good stuff. And that's about all I got for tonight, folks. Thanks for listening. Bechtloff out.